You all have thoughts about what you kind of would have been doing in this interim week. Overall, we kind of have we've worked out some of the things that you gain in those downtimes. Um, I guess probably for Jinx, we've never really had a solo session with you to where you had a chance to really figure out what you would do in downtime wise. So for now, I would just say you could basically make maybe something like a gold a week, basically kind of playing as a bard in different like inns, um and that can kind of be your generic downtime. Whereas, I think Malchin and Davros are in pretty similar situations. I'm not sure if we ever discussed how much Davros makes versus what his guild dues are, but theoretically, you should make more than your guild dues like automatically take from you in a month. So just keep that in mind as far as things go. But do you guys have any thoughts about what you've done in this past week? Is there anybody who needs like a thought towards something like that?
So I think at least some of the week Davros probably would have spent just recovering, trying to kind of regain his strength and reduce his. I think he'd gotten exhausted from going into a frenzy. Um, Aside from that, probably just working. I think we had settled on. I think he had said like 15 gold a month is basically the dues, and then um, yeah, I mean, I feel like when he is working, he's not making a whole lot of money, like essentially enough to pay his dues and support, like, the family and stuff. So he's not like saving up a lot, but um, yeah. Oh, and I guess maybe we talked about it a little bit last week about potentially having him eventually transition over now that he's gotten Dalton back, and his like the rage that kind of drove him initially is kind of not there as much. So maybe he would be looking for somebody who could actually train him in kind of how to fight. Maybe somebody from the guild or somebody from the guild who can essentially tell him like where he might find a trainer. Presumably that'll cost some money, so he's still got to save up some for that. But that might be kind of like putting out feelers on that might have been also something he would have started to do kind of in this intervening week.
Yeah, I feel like that'll be a solid thing for us when you go to like a solo session that we could kind of play out on that level. But I do think on some level we'll probably have you step Davros aside for a little bit while he retrains. But I don't want to make that something that's like prohibitive so much as just make it fit into the narrative.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah, just kind of have him fade off to the background for a bit and play somebody else. Yep.
But it definitely works out. Like right now, you and Malchin are pretty close experience wise. If you guys continue to play like as the three of these characters, even with Jinx being level 2 right now, I think Jinx would just, I mean, you guys have like 1400 experience, and I think Jinx has like 700. Um, it very quickly evens out. Any thoughts though from Jinx or Malchin? Are the two of you kind of good with more or less generic kind of backgrounds of like bouncing at the bar in the docks and um, kind of playing off different taverns for some loot here and there?
Well, for me, I just hit a pretty big lick in the sewers, didn't die, and made the most gold I've ever had. So I for sure would have bought something really nice. Maybe got like, oh, I got the kill with the boomerang, so maybe I get the boomerang like done up real nice with like some metal bits on it or something like that. And then I would have just gambled with the rest of my money and either tried to win a ton or lost it all.
Gotcha. Yeah, as long as the boomerang upgrade is all kind of aesthetics, you can spend what you would like on that. And then but I've got the rules for one of the gambling games here.
Yeah, I just want to make it look fancy. I don't want any new rules or anything. I just want it to look tight. So when people see it, they're like, now that's a nice boomerang.
All right. I feel like Avandra's Favor is a perfect game for you to gamble as much as you would like to. How much total gold do you have right now that you're looking to gamble?
Okay, I have 34, so I want to spend a ridiculous amount on my boomerang. So 3 gold on that, and then 31 I would like to gamble with.
Gotcha. So minimum buy-ins 25 gold for this. If you go for the 31, you can roll 2d6, 7 and a 12 are wins. And then yeah,
Oh yeah, I feel lucky.
that's
I'd
kind of
like
a
to go
harsh
all in on this one. So what do I roll again?
2d6 and 7 or 12 win.
Come on, 7. Uh-oh, what's double ones?
It's a loss.
Oh, nothing special. It's just straight up 7 wins
Yeah.
or 12. Oh yeah, that game kind of sucks. Double ones is like the equivalence of double sixes, but it's like the shitty one. I should like lose a finger in a gambling debt or something. All right, just kidding. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I think that game kind of benefits from it has the you can double the bet and add a d6 to it. So rolling low like that allows you to double the bet and add an extra d6 where you would then be looking for a 5. But otherwise, I mean, everything about that game is pretty harsh. But I think all of the critical role versions of gambling are heavily weighted towards the casino.
Well, 7 is like most probable number you roll. I don't know what the exact probability is, but it's pretty high.
Yeah, yeah. But still, for only 2 digits to be the ones to win, it definitely seems pretty harsh. Any thoughts from Malshin?
No, I would probably just have like bounced a bit in the tavern he's staying in.
Gotcha. Nothing special is perfectly fine. So yeah, while you guys basically go about this week, eventually we're going to have like kind of the times are coming to. Everybody is kind of called to the Crooked Skinner to essentially be relatively prepared for the arrival of the face of Draith and what theoretically is kind of like the coming to of this time schedule that should basically be setting you all towards this future kind of movement. Do you all have any thoughts of where you are on the idea of is a family friend of the DeMarquis and guild member, but admittedly, like meta knowledge wise, a sidekick, worth sacrificing the guild and getting out of the Warrens and getting away from the heat of the Pale Dogs? Or is this the type of thing where you, despite kind of signs pointing you towards this is a Pyrrhic battle in front of you, do you guys want to kind of stand up against the Pale Dogs and basically like move forward holding your ground? Do you all have thoughts about this prior to effectively the mouth of Jaraith arriving in the Crooked Skinner?
So I think Davros probably at more at Dalton's urging, like maybe because they were kidnapped together, and maybe Briff kind of helped, the Dalton and Briff kind of helped each other kind of get through things. So Dalton feels he owes Briff a debt, and so he wants, he's still recuperating and trying to work through everything that happened to him, but maybe he would, once he learned from Davros about the whole situation, like he would tell Davros that if he can do anything to get Briff back. And then Davros thinking maybe that would help Dalton, would be kind of pushing for, okay, let's do what we need to get him back. But that is just Davros. So
Yeah, Malshan is on the side of like he doesn't want to fight if we don't have to, and we have secured a new house, and so we might as well. He isn't too attached to this building.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think that sounds like enough to say when you have the arrival of kind of this other person kind of shows up. You have this large, like 6.5 foot tall, kind of broad shouldered man who arrives in this like plague doctor type of mask, covering his face with a long beak protruding forward. And they kind of like walk forward, closing the door behind them. And just with kind of a stern, slow kind of like look around the room, kind of like make eyes over kind of everybody who fills this the cantina, and effectively just after a moment of eyeing up everybody, whoops, still on the wrong marker. After a moment of kind of eyeing up everybody, they just kind of like walk forward and make their way up into the higher levels, and basically make their way to the mezzanine, and without any invitation forward are just going to basically walk themselves into the conversation that you all are having upstairs. And as Kalimtas kind of like turns to this person and kind of just with like a, oh, with an attitude like that, I assume you come to speak for the Pale Dogs. I am the mouth of Duraith, and I have come to see. Are you prepared to leave this place behind to save your friend's life? Do you value the rest of your flock?
Davros is going to kind of glance towards Jinx and Malchin, and then Kalantas, and then look towards the face of Duraith, and kind of give like a curt nod, and I will go, provided you keep up your end.
So this figure kind of like raises a hand to kind of like the side of their face, and you can see that there's like a gold apparatus like between three of his fingers. And unlike the other kind of like bare knuckle, uh damn, why can't I think of what they're called? Like steel knuckles. These are almost like three separate rings, and they kind of like link like with chain, like between those three fingers and then between his wrists. And he kind of like manipulates this object. There's like kind of a whirl of power that kind of just like almost like hums into existence. And then this person kind of like just kind of speaks forward and bring in their friend. This place is ours. And as he kind of like speaks this, the door is going to open at the front, and within the next few moments, I can't actually remember what token I originally had for Brifford to drop now that you guys have him back. But I feel like he was the guy who hunted Dracula. I think that's the token I gave him was Van Helsing. So you'll just have yeah, let's say like a small female, probably like a third of the size of Brifford, walks in, kind of like bringing him forward in manacles, and she otherwise seems to be kind of like holding like a bow, and maybe some like short daggers, kind of like laced through like a corset across her back. But otherwise seems to be a relatively like unarmed sort of person for dragging across. Like Brifford is a huge man. You're talking about like 250 pounds of muscle, about like 6'5" kind of thing. Next to pretty much anybody other than the two barbarians in this group and like the lizard men. Brifford shadows over everybody else here. And as they kind of like bring him in, we will basically have the transitioning as you all can basically leave this place. They will pass across Brifford and kind of transition in as this place starts to fill up with the children of the Pale Dogs. And they start to move in, and you guys can move out. You can leave this place in peace. Your work here in the Warrens is finished. Go now. Find yourselves homes where hope can remain alive and where you are welcome. So, do you all have any thoughts prior to effectively leaving the Crooked Skinner for the last time?
So Davros probably kind of as he's walking away, he's he's still got kind of a bit of a sour taste in his mouth about this whole deal, and he's probably like kind of muttering maybe at one point, kind of as he's following Kellum Tassad, he's kind of glances back in towards the mezzanine and is like, oh, one of these days I'll rip that mask right off his face, just kind of like muttering to himself angrily, but otherwise just going to move out, realizing that now is not the time to
While you're still up there, though?
probably like as he's like headed down the stairs and kind of moving out into the main area.
Gotcha. Do you look back as you like kind of head over and he's like overlooking the mezzanine?
Yeah, I think yeah. So he might even if he's visible up, he might even kind of like glance up, like kind of maybe make eye contact, and then kind of just like start muttering to himself.
When you look back, you see like the mask is removed and there's a man beneath it. His face is scarred horribly. There's, as far as you can tell, next to no flesh like remaining. This is like the flesh has been kind of like torn off in chunks and it's repaired like and healed, but it's kind of like pigmentation. I don't know, like thinking of like kind of fifth element, where like the pigmentation comes from like the ultraviolet light of the sun. Like you can still kind of vaguely see through his flesh because it's never repaired, like where like some of the uh like fat cells have kind of returned. The pigment that kind of covers up the like red of muscle and blood cells beneath never kind of returned. So when this person like removes their mask and they're kind of looking down across this mezzanine, their face is very much like a Cenobite, like out of damn, why can't I think of it now? Pinhead.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, out of Hellraiser.
Yeah, so if he kind of like sees that, like when he looks up, he might kind of just probably start a little bit, maybe like involuntary, like make a little kind of like religious sign, like I don't know, the almost like a evil eye kind of thing, and then um,
Yeah,
yeah,
in the long run, I think Lothianism is meant to be a pretty direct copy of Christianity. So I don't see that it would be that hard to say they have almost the exact same kind of like demonic eye, like the rock on symbol to like kind of like send demonic and like kind of evil presence back towards somebody kind of thing.
yeah. So he'd be kind of doing that as almost like yeah, like almost like involuntary reaction kind of thing, and then yeah, but otherwise, yeah, he is he'll plan to fight another day, but for now, um,
So obviously you said he's like pretty scarred up or whatever, missing his whole face. Could you tell, was he an adult or is he a kid too?
Every single one of the different people who identified themselves as the face of Jeraith would have been the only adults that you have seen that even remotely associate with the Pale Dogs. But this is also part of how they have presented themselves. Most of the meetings, I think Davros has been the only person kind of in. Kalimtas in some of them as well, but still effectively Davros is kind of like more or less the expert on this. But each time the face kind of speaks as if the Pale Dogs are something other. And that's one of the things to kind of like take away is like Pale Dogs are recruiting for something, and death is their natural life progression. There's no adult Pale Dogs, though.
All right, that makes sense.
So takes us out into the Warrens. This kind of will become a little bit of a foreign land for you guys into the future here as you leave the Crooked Skinner for the last time. You will find yourselves kind of watched and followed as you progress through this area at all. Any other thoughts about how you progress? Are you guys just kind of vacating the area? Are you gonna kind of succumb to any of the like taunting or jeering that might kind of follow as you leave this place? Um, I think you're still kind of under a little bit of the peace, but at some point there's like this kind of recognition, like with Briffard in hand, things are gonna kind of fall at any given point here. It's like having a armitage and knowing like I think that's the wrong word, but having like a peace talk that you know is going to like stop at midnight, and it's like 11:45.
yeah. So Davros is making all sorts of promises to himself to kind of come back and you know repay these taunts, but for now, again, he is kind of cognizant that we are outnumbered and um, kind of on a not really in a position to kind of go back on the agreement just yet. So essentially, like let's we'll gather our strength, and one of these days we'll come back and clear the lot out. Kind of um, kind of saying that to the others, kind of quietly, but otherwise, kind of just like and trying to essentially just like not even now, like as he's leaving, he's just kind of like looking straight ahead, like trying not to even like kind of trying not to show that like any of these taunts are even like getting to him kind of thing, like trying to be very stoic, I guess.
Let me have everybody roll a d12 as you kind of make your way across the city and towards the North Market. 7, 11, and how about from Jinx? And a 12. Yeah, so everybody kind of continues forward, marching across the town. Um, More or less normal day kind of picking up here as far as the city is concerned. There's nothing really big happening around you, nothing really shocking happening around you. And when you all start to kind of pile into what is your new home, middle of the day, you're going to find that there are no goblins upstairs. You probably have one goblin who's like on watch in that back room. No current traps kind of set up at this point, as they're basically like somewhat expecting of you. And then
Oh,
the
where did we
whole
leave
like,
it with the goblins?
what was that?
Where do we like leave it with the goblins?
It was part of what they did last week. They kind of negotiated with the goblins. The goblins needed kind of a place to exist. And part of what kind of like fit in with things is under a negotiation. It's kind of like, they need people to make it so they can kind of live here. And you guys need a place to live. So it just kind of works out. But it's kind of just that loose, we can all kind of be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then
so we
they
have
had
goblin roommates.
Effectively, yes, you have goblin roommates.
and then they showed us there's basically like a secret or hidden door that leads into some of the I guess the Bane Warrens or the under the city from the cellar, and that's where Malchin and Davros had gone in and pretty quickly gotten into a fight and then had to retreat from. So
Oh wait, you guys went back in, or is that's when I was with you?
No, that
So
was
we went,
last week.
yeah, we went in last week into the house and basically we're trying to sneak in, but the goblins were there, but essentially we're able to talk and come to this agreement. And then after that, they showed us kind of essentially like a tour of the rest of the place, and like in the cellar, from the kitchen, there's a kind of in one corner of that is a kind of like a secret door that leads into the tunnels, and the goblin said there's really bad, things in there. So Davros and Malchin had gone into um, try and kind of like investigate or explore that area a little bit, and I think like yeah, we didn't get more than maybe, I don't know, a couple 100 feet at most, and then we fought a kind of zombie thing and this weird like shadow creature, and that was as far as we got in that exploration.
Oh, not rats. It was like undead this time.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would say is I think it's generous to call what Malshin did sneaking when he literally just went up to the window and got eye contact with the goblin inside. The first thing he did.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like peeking in the window, and he's like peeking out the window at the same time, and then all of a sudden you like see each other. You're like 3 inches away.
If I recall, it was kind of one of those things where, like, yeah, the floorboards kind of like with a little bit of like squeaking was just enough that, like, while Malchin was moving up to the window to look in, the goblin was like moving around to look out. And yeah, it 100% was one of those moments where you're just like making eye contact with somebody right away. And it just never got hostile. And it was enough that eventually, you guys were kind of like welcomed inside by the goblins, which again, I don't think you necessarily would have noticed right away. But two of the three goblins that were inside of there were goblins from like the week before, kind of thing. So you guys have your whole house here now. This is going to be one of the things where the guild as a whole in this place is going to absolutely fill this place. It is going to be absolutely stuffed full of characters at this point, as you guys kind of have everybody and just finding very quickly there's too many of us, as everybody just kind of fills up every like nook and cranny of this place. But you've got a pile of goblins in the cellar. You've got probably about like 12 of you guys in like the stories around. You probably have a certain amount. Ooh, I should actually put Briffard up there as well. You probably have a certain amount of like goods and things as well. Where did Brifford go? I dropped him. What did I do? Drop him as a map piece? Bam. All right, there we go. Now we got a Brifford as well upstairs. But yeah, you guys have this like kind of full lot to yourselves. Pile of goblins sleeping down below. You've got one goblin who's keeping watch in the kitchen. One goblin who keeps watch like in the cellar. But otherwise than that, like the rest of the goblins are all effectively sleeping here. Um, you've got goods from the actual Crooked Skinner in this place. What kind of thoughts do you guys have when you first come into this? Are you looking to interrogate Brifford at all? Are you looking to interrogate the goblins at all?
Just curious, do we have like any sort of agenda for this particular day or session or anything?
Nobody came forward to me about one. If you guys don't get to something pretty quickly here, I'm about to introduce something.
Well, so I'm just looking at the information Discord. So I see there's this adventurers wanted, find missing daughter, 200 gold. Is that still an open quest?
I have nothing prepared for that. I could
Oh,
do
okay.
something for that in the future. But no, that's one of those things. Like a lot of those are me presenting those as like, hey, Jared, I'm trying to do this. Can you set up this? So yeah, if you guys don't have ideas at this point, I mean, first off, fighting the paddle dogs was one thing that I had set up if you guys went in that route. Um, but as far as things go, I think as you guys kind of like chat up and kind of discuss things with Brifford, you might find out that like he's basically been moved across many different places, being both at sea, on land, and then in like some caves off from the water at different times. Hardly ever in contact with Dalton after that they were actually taken. He never really necessarily knew or had any reason to feel safe kind of talking to anyone around. But over time, you can kind of like figure out like there's still more going on at the docks and in kind of like this sea area than is otherwise kind of being normally kind of discussed. And one of the things, whoops, I clicked that way too early. One of the things that he's kind of going for is um, as far as hmm, I just as far as things go, I'd say one of the last things that he kind of like heard before kind of being like taken away was at some point he picked up the name of the ship that he was on, Parnath's Jewel. And it basically gives you at least a partial lead as to tracking down where he was. And that's something you guys could go for. Otherwise, we can always do a classic. You guys can go into the Undercity underneath the Goblin House, or you can go into like the sewers and hunt rats. Those are still things that you can do. Those are very generic. We can generate encounters as we go.
I'm good for either one. If you already prepared something with the pale dogs, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about making our stand, but maybe now that we got Grifford out of there, we could like go back and actually, you know.
No, 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 no. Definitely done with that. You guys can go deal with the pale dogs, but that decision was made and that was perfectly fine. But that's just one of the things where that has to be part of the encounter is being prepared for the combat of it.
So Davros would be interested in tracking down this Parnath's jewel lead. He's still obviously like he wants to get back at whoever's responsible for kidnapping Dalton and Briffard to a lesser extent. And if maybe it's not, we can't take on the Enin and directly maybe yet, but we can essentially try to do some stuff to disrupt some of their operations. And this Parnath's, investigating this Parnath's jewel seems like maybe that could lead to something like that. But he's, if we want to just do a sewer or an under, Bane Warren's run too, we're good with that too.
Jinx, Malchin, thoughts?
Yeah, Malshin he's pretty keen on the part of Sewell as well. He like Dalton thought, Davros, like it's not too fond of slaving, and if hitting an operation of slaving is what they do today, he's definitely fine with that.
So I don't want to like leave it to you where you have to go along, but it basically becomes like, does Jinx have a hard veto where you want to convince them to do something else?
Oh no, I'm good for whatever.
Sounds like we're going to the docks.
So, Malchin, you are most at home in the docks. You currently live at the Silken Sail, off from, I think it's like the fifth pier, as far as things go here in the docks. You have a solid sense of the ships that are kind of at dock at any given time. Let me have you roll an intelligence here.
That is a 7.
Solid. Yeah, when you kind of like are trying to think of it, as far as you can tell, like you don't remember hearing any ship named the Parnas Jewel heading into the docks in the last week, few weeks, however long that you've understood like Dalton and Briffard to be missing. You cannot recall a Parnas Jewel heading into port here. Doesn't mean that the boat's not there, just never something that you cross paths with. You guys have information about the captain of the docks district. You all have information about the damn, I can't think of the dock master or the dock harbor master. What kind of thoughts do you have as to how you will go about this when you head off to the docks? What is your first order to kind of attend to?
I would probably want to go like a little bit more on the maybe not necessarily like stealthy side, but at least be like a little deceptive, not just come straight out there and try to like, hey, we're trying to get to the bottom of this slavery thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe I don't know. I guess Malchin, you said you're works as a bouncer. Maybe we come up with some story that Melchin had some sort of confrontation with some sailor a little while back, and kind of he heard that he served aboard some ship called Parnath's Jewel, and he's trying to track him down, and maybe we just kind of use that to ask around a bit.
And like maybe what'd you say he's called the harbor master? Maybe like
Yeah.
yeah, maybe like the harbor master has like a book or something where he would write down all the ships that came in. Maybe I could like try to get my hands on that and like check it when he's distracted or something.
Gotcha. So, do you guys want to go to the harbor masters and ask around there for this person that Malchin had a tussle with at the Silken Sail?
I don't know, Malcolm, what do you think of that plan?
I mean, I'm for it. That might work. S- Yeah, I mean that could work.
To be honest, it's not the sort of plan that Davros would probably be coming up with, but so that was more me than Davros. He would be much more in the direct camp.
I think the only thing Malshin will mention is like having been on a pirate vessel before. They might have bought off some of the like people here, just in case. They might have had the records show another ship came in when they came in. So that could have happened. But sure, we could check the books, and if the harbor master isn't being bought, or if he has a correct ledger somewhere, then that could work.
Imagine, I mean, that's a good point. If he did kind of falsify some records, maybe there's maybe to sort of like protect himself or like keep incriminating evidence. Maybe he wrote down the true, like you said, wrote down the kind of the real information and is keeping it somewhere else.
Yeah, and like Basha will mention, he Malshin himself did bribe an official like the day he got here, so it isn't too hard to do it. He got a bit lucky, but
Right? Like maybe he keeps two sets of books, so we could try to distract him and see if we find something that's fishy.
yeah, I mean we could check the first book. If there is mention of a Parnat Jewel, then we're in luck, and if not, then we might see if there's a more hidden ledger.
Yeah, and it makes sense, Davros comes down to like gets his buddies back after he got beat up at the bar the night before. I can't. That's kind of like barbarian is it gets right there.
So, you all can head on into the docks when you basically make your way to this area. You kind of wind down this long, kind of crisscrossing street as you are walking down the cliffs from the Midtown district, just south of the necropolis, down into the docks area. So it's kind of this is why I should have the full map of Tolis still available, which I do not right now. But you kind of like are walking just north of the Kings River and just south of the necropolis on this far eastern portion of the Midtown district. And it's right over near where 219 is, that it kind of like drops down over the cliff's edge and starts to switch back and walk kind of like north and then south as you basically walk down this, like, I think it's about a 200-foot cliff in this area to make your way down to the docks. Is I guess realistically Davros probably doesn't have a lot of reason to go to the docks regularly, but it wouldn't be completely unknown to you, whereas the docks might be somewhat new for Jinx. I don't actually remember what we did for your backstory, why, or if you grew up in Tolis. So, but the docks is one of those things where this is like a necessary location, and by and large, the docks is unnatural. It is a sandy un ground, a sandy firmament foundation. It is a sandy foundation in the water. It is one of those things where it's not like nice buildings like any of the other kind of architecture of the city. It is very close to kind of the shanties that you would find in the Warrens. But a lot of these are more shanties because it is unknown when they will collapse because of how poor the foundation is, more than that they don't have the funds to build real buildings. It's just that you build things knowing that eventually they're going to collapse as kind of the sand washes away and like more and more foundation needs built up. So that's kind of like it still has that transitory kind of existence that the Warrens has, but things are a little bit different here. Walking down this switchback, though, it would be the type of thing where you can pretty quickly see that it's not like a typical kind of like lighthouse, but there are two effectively towers in the northern side of the dockboard, which is where 225 is. And I think it would be perfectly sensical at this point that Malchin would quite well know that these are the dockmaster's tower. So you guys can see kind of like these big, like red topped towers. One of them is probably like 3 or 4 stories. One of them is probably like 2 or 3 stories tall. They each have kind of like octagon, like upper levels to them, and then say like 1.5 like flights, not flights, 1.5 stories underneath that, or 2.5 stories underneath it, kind of respectively, of the shorter one to the taller one. So they all sit higher than like a natural building would. So you can basically see that these like octagonal, like upper levels all have window openings that look in all directions, so that they have like 2 windows in each direction. And effectively, it kind of has this effect of, if there's a fire burning in the inside of this, the fire kind of scatters every like 15 degrees, and you can pretty much see that this is meant to be a lighthouse without mirrors. Um, there's a tower that can, or there's a walkway that connects between the two of them, about a story high, and then a doorway underneath this walkway on each building. So, like in between the two buildings, there's just a wooden door that leads into either or of the towers. I don't think Mouchin has actually gone to see the dockmaster, where you know where he would be, but you guys can basically know like that is the dock masters, and you could go from there. You guys have any thoughts on how you approach the dock master? You're just gonna pick one of those doors and walk in?
I think I might be a little bit over my head here. I was picturing like a man with a clipboard just sort of standing around.
So I guess one question is: do we want to try and speak with the harbor master, or do we want to try and I don't know, break in at night and root around a little bit?
Think more like the distraction. I mean, I don't think any of us are particularly great at sneaking.
No, being quiet isn't exactly my strong suit.
All right. Well, I suppose we could just go bang on the door and tell whoever answers we're here to see the harbor master.
Do we see like anybody around? Does it seem like we're supposed to be in this area, or like we have already kind of went where we're not supposed to be?
Roll a perception check. I will throw it out there as well, guys. Like, as far as city campaigns go, it probably behooves you to know something about what you're doing before you do it in a way that's illegal. With everything that you should ever do inside of a city. Just like as a don't split the party kind of level of rule. Do you have proficiency with that, Jinx, or is that just a hard 11?
Oh wait,
Perception? If you've got proficiency, well, really roll a d4 and then either add half if you're just doing jack of all trades or add the full if you've got proficiency.
yeah, I do have proficiency.
And then do you have a positive wisdom modifier? I think I've got you with a 0. So
Yeah, that's right.
14 total. I'd say as you're kind of like looking around, it's not unnatural for people to be in this area. Um, yeah, like you can see some people kind of like this is more or less the main road from the actual piers off towards the city. So most of what's traveling at this point is kind of going round about the wharf road and making its way towards the actual switchbacks that lead out of the dock area. There's a little bit of traffic that kind of like turns down like Fisherman Street, like directly to the south of the tower. But overall, this is one of those things like you're just kind of blending into the city. There's people moving by. It's not like hustle and bustle like some of the upper levels where you can often be like shoulder to shoulder or like a cart's moving through or like a noble's moving through and you get like thrown to the side. This is just kind of like stuff's going on, but it's not super busy that you're like shoulder to shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. I would say stay away from like blatantly criminal stuff, but just sort of like acting like we belong until we find someone and can ask about the dockmaster or until we stumble upon the dockmaster area.
Oh yeah, at that point I kind of had you guys in front of the actual towers of the dockmaster. Kind of like as if Malchin, like you guys asked, like, all right, let's go see the dockmaster, and Malchin like basically brings you to the towers. It's like this is, as far as I know, where the dockmaster is. Otherwise, you all have links to the captain of the guards here, and from Captain Simeon information about basically like they're interested in the slave trade. This isn't something that the guards are unaware of. I'm going to make a decision. Knock on the door, open the door, walk in, go talk to the guards.
Yeah, did I also just go to open the door?
Larger tower or the smaller tower?
Probably, I guess, start with the smaller one. So kind of, I guess, like try the door first to see if it's locked or it's not open. He would knock, probably, or more like kind of just like pound on the door.
So when you go to open the door, you're going to open up the door, and inside there's a little human. Takes a moment for you to recognize this is probably like a 10-ish year old young girl. She kind of like turns to you real quick, like in a bit of a shock. She seems to be kind of like preparing a tray of food in like a pretty dirty, kind of nasty kitchen. And she like turns to you with like this tray that is like overladen with food, and in like a hurl of a shock, like her initial thought is like, I'm coming. It's, and then she like looks to you and like, hello, how can I help you? What are you here for?
Didn't mean to startle you, little lady. We're looking for the harbor master.
Do you have a message for him? Are you bringing in a ship to port? What can I help you with? What's the ship's name? Do you have what sort of goods do you have? Are you transferring anything that? And she's like thinking for a second. Are you transferring anything that's um? Could you have weird things on board that could bring plague or disease?
Nothing like that. But it's all stuff we should probably be speaking to the harbor master himself about. No offense.
Do you have an appointment? Would you like to make an appointment?
Malcha will pipe forward. Sure, we could make an appointment. How long is the waiting time?
Depends when you need your appointment for. What is it concerning?
I mean, something that we should probably just talk with the harbor master with. But if we could get an appointment as soon as possible, maybe now even.
She holds out her hand. See as her thumb just kind of like starts to like move in circles around her palm. If you're not coming into port with a ship, if you don't have a reason to see him, surely you have a reason to make things work out in your favor.
Davros is going to kind of nudge Malchin maybe with his shoulder a bit and kind of like maybe glance down towards his pouch.
I'll like kind of step up and reach down towards my side and grab like my coin purse and just kind of like shake it a little bit and slowly start moving it up. And I'll say to her, I don't suppose we could possibly just cut to the chase and maybe you could answer a couple of questions for us and wouldn't even need to see the dock master.
Roll a persuasion for me. Same thing. You should, whenever I have you rolling a d20 at this point, you need to roll your proficiency die as well because of Jack of all trades.
So I have persuasion +6. So what do I roll for that?
Well, remember, you basically have the +4, and then you're rolling a d4 instead. Otherwise, you get to choose. You can do this if you don't want to. But if you're gonna ever use the d4 as your proficiency, like the proficiency die, I need you to always do it from now on.
Well,
You
I'll
can
just do it the
probably.
regular way because I don't quite get how that's going. So
All right, yeah. So then it's just an 18 there. No worries there. Yeah. So as you kind of look to her, she'll kind of like cough into her other hand as well, and she's like, "There's a certain amount of his work that I accomplish for him, but if you need to see the dockmaster, things need to be greased in the right sort of way. Even I know that after enough time, you're not going to get to see him if you don't need to, and you don't make it worth his while."
of course, makes sense, darling. I don't think I'm really in a position to make it worth his while, but maybe I could make it worth yours. And I'll like start to like shake out my coin purse, and I think I have like 6 silver.
I mean, silver for most people is plenty, so are you going to give her 6 silver?
Yeah, I'm gonna open them out into my hand, and then I'll hold it out. And when she reaches to like take it, I'll ask the ship's name.
Roll a d100 for me. Harness Jewel has been locked out at Anchorage for, and she kind of like looks around at the tables real quick. Oh, and she like reaches over to a book and she kind of like opens it up. Harness Jewel has been at Anchorage for about 2 weeks now. They're under quarantine. They appear to have been a plague ship.
Did she seem to be like telling the truth?
I mean, you could do a damn, why can't I think of it? An insight check. As far as I'm concerned, though, a little girl isn't necessarily going to be a trained liar at this point. Yeah, as far as you're concerned, she's telling the truth.
And what else are we trying to figure out about this ship, guys? Like, does she know anything about the slave trade? We're trying to figure out like whose ship it is.
Marshall will pipe up just if it's been a, if it's been classified as a plague ship, has there been any goings to and from it? Any people? Well,
No, they're under quarantine. Nobody's allowed to go to that ship or come from it.
not even officials, anyone who has to like check up on things. Completely no contact.
She like looks back over the ledger again. It's been about 17 days since a cleric went aboard to sea, and that's when they were put under quarantine. And it looks like we have a cleric should be due to check them out again in another 2 weeks. But only a priest of Lothian is able to override a quarantine and to go aboard a ship so dangerous.
Does it say who was the cleric who called the quarantine? Does it say? Or do you know?
Roll a D100 for me.
17.
Don't actually know if there's a cleric of the dock ward, but I want it to be a cleric of the dock ward with that role. So yeah, I'm just gonna say I think there's a church in the docks. Let's go for I think it's got to be from the Temple District. So give me 1 second, but they give you a cleric's name.
Davros is gonna kind of like turning back towards to Melchin and Jinx, and we kind of speaking a little quietly is gonna say, "What about that priest with the girl we met in the Temple District? What if he could? He seemed pretty grateful to Dalton. What if he could get us some sort of writ or something to give us permission to board, or I don't know. Don't know how these things work, but
I mean, it's definitely a lead. We've got a connection. Maybe somebody owes us a favor. It's worth exploring.
I'm gonna say it might also be worth checking in with the guard captain of the docks. Just to see what he knows or if he has anything on the Hornet's Yule.
I just have like a lore question. We know that there's like a plague going on right now. And like I would assume that these are like the measures to try to prevent further plague, but is it like blatantly obvious to everyone that there's like a plague right now, or is it still kind of like hush hush?
I would say, in general, a city like this in this kind of time frame is more or less always fighting plagues. Not necessarily that there is ever a plague that is the problem. So it's probably like the rat tails are something that the commissar's men are offering a reward for, because the people who work in the sewers are probably, say, like at any given point, like 1/3 of them infected with the plague. It doesn't mean that a plague is running rampant and causing, big issues. It's just one of those things where, like, theoretically there's a shitload of clerics in this city, but it's one of those things where it takes a lot of effort for, like, a normal cleric at working any one of these things is still not necessarily too much higher than like level 3 or 4 kind of thing, where they have access to um what's it uh the minor lesser restoration, but they're
I got
not
you.
necessarily like super powerful. There's really only one cleric in this city that's actually like super powerful.
So it's much more just like a steady, like kind of like precautions. It doesn't seem like out of the ordinary that there would be like a quarantine ship or whatever.
Precisely, yeah.
Okay, well, I guess if we're kind of like resolved with her, I'll take off that silver, obviously, and then I'll just like maybe propose just one more like random question, just like to
So
kind
if I
of,
can, before you do that, I'm going to tell you guys that it's under the authority of the Archbishop Theobald of St. Valens Cathedral that the ship has been locked down. That will not tell you the actual name of the cleric, but the Archbishop basically leads that church, and it's one of the biggest churches of Lothian in the city. And I think that's precisely how the city would probably work, where it's just a bureaucratic hell.
Davros would like to, if we can get aboard that ship, maybe there's, you know, some way, again, kind of the priest that we met, maybe he can get us a writ or, you know, some sort of dispensation kind of thing. Otherwise, who knows how long it'll be stuck out there.
so can I say to her as I cast minor illusion like on myself, like can I say I don't suppose there's any way that you could just kind of play dumb and I'll just like wink at her and then I'll make myself look like a cleric. Can I do that?
You can do a persuasion at disadvantage. One more though.
Yeah, sorry. So 22 and 17. So
Yeah.
the lower one.
It's your life. If you want to go on that ship, you are certainly welcome to go get yourselves killed. I hope you have enough faith to recognize how dangerous what you're doing is, and you don't expect any sort of repercussions for being so blasphemous. And you see as she kind of like does like the kind of like cross, like forehead to chest to like shoulder to shoulder, and then like kind of kisses like her fingers.
I'll do the same like symbol back to her and then I'll just say sounds like we have a deal. And then I'll just like look up.
Do you have a rowboat or some sort of way to get to the ship? It's docked near the lighthouse, or it's at anchor near the lighthouse.
I was hoping maybe you be able to know one that might be for rent.
I don't think anybody else is as stupid as you all are. So let's see. Uh, if you head down towards the Silken Sail, you're right next to Pier 4 at that point, and you should be able to see the little shack for Sard's boats. He'll probably rent you something. You're gonna need at least a deposit for the boat to be able to rent one from him. But it's not going to be any silver. You guys need gold. But if you can rent a boat from him, Sard's the person. Or if you're going to be able to rent a boat, Sard's the person. Or if you'd find anybody in the city who's willing to paddle you over to a boat that's on quarantine.
I'll look back at the guys, give them like the "is that it" look.
Davros will he'll look to the girl, kind of much appreciated, and then kind of nod to Jinx.
Well, thank you very much, young lady. We do appreciate it.
Now, as you all like walk out of the smaller of these towers, she's gonna take this tray that probably weighs about a third, if not like half of like the mass that she has, and she's just like covered in food. And she's gonna take this tray and she like moves over to the other door across to the larger tower, and she kind of like pushes into the door with her back, and then she's just gonna kind of like with a little bit of like a wink just kind of winks towards you and then disappear into the other tower.
Well, that went well, gentlemen.
Yeah, to be honest, that went a lot better than I expected.
I don't suppose any of you have enough coin to bribe an actual adult or rent a boat or anything, do you? I'm all tapped out, and I'll just sort of like shake my empty coin purse.
Yeah,
Well,
well, Malshin would probably. We're going by the silken sails. I can pick up some coin on the way. I should have enough.
Sorry, it's been a rough, well, week life. Pretty much, they don't call me Jinx for nothing. I'll tell you that much.
Well, hopefully then that bad luck has run its course and we're in for some good luck right now.
I do like your positivity, Malchin. I hope you're right.
well, seems like you know this place, Melchin, so should lead the way down towards Silken Sail.
Just out of curiosity, Malchin, what is your background? How do you know the area so well?
I mean, pretty new to the city itself, but most of my time have been spent here on the docks, either like just staying here or bouncing for the silken sails. I've seen a bit of it.
Oh, okay. So you were a bouncer at the bar there, or like whatever.
Yep. Uh, it pays decent enough, and I get room and board and food. So there's that.
It's respectable as any job could be. Well, lead the way.
All right, just follow me.
Davros, what's your profession?
Blacksmith.
Okay, cool.
While you all are heading through the docks here, let me have you all roll a d10.
Yeah, that is a 1.
Go for a d100 for me as well.
And that is a 64.
Yeah, well, you guys are walking down, like, say, like Fisherman Street, because it's a little bit less busy than going directly along the wharf road. You can kind of avoid all of like the pier kind of traffic of some of the carts and whatnot that are moving through here. And you're taking, it's not like a back alley, but it is a non-main street, at least towards Bay, where you can kind of divert, or if you would like, you can just walk through the Silken Sail with Malchin kind of like leading you through there. But when you guys are kind of heading down this area, you just kind of have like a carpenter who's like fixing a like collapsed wall in this area. He's kind of like putting up some like support like beams of like 4x4s to like support this wall. And you can basically see as he's like barring up this wall of this building that like recently kind of collapsed. You can actually see part of what they're doing is like basically unburying what seems to be somebody who was crushed by this wall that collapsed. But it's just kind of one of those things. Just walking by, he just noticed like a little happening of the city. At some point, this wall gave way. Somebody was sleeping outside, and they probably died in the middle of their sleep to this kind of horrific little accident. But otherwise, you all can make your way into and through the Silken Sail if you would like, or you can just kind of divert down Bay Street and then across to the Wharf Road and get off to the actual edge. Which do you think you do there as far as the description goes? Where do you think you're going?
I'm definitely enamored with like what's going on down here, so I'm just following your lead.
Yeah, I think Marsh would. I mean, he said he's picking up some gold, so he's gonna go through the silken sails, just so he can pick something up from his backpack.
Gotcha. Silken Sail actually is a very similar construction to kind of what like the Cricket Skinner was. Cricket Skinner, like obviously, was an old like kind of like livestock building that was kind of taken over, but it was kind of like basically like big entryway. And this is very similar, where it basically has two doors. One goes up to the docks, one leads out to the Fisherman's Street, and they're basically just two large, almost whole facing of that wall that just kind of opens up. And like this place has just two large bars that kind of flank each of these doors, always on the right hand of walking into that door. So you can basically see that there's a bar that kind of is an L shape on the right hand while you walk in from Fisherman Street, and on the opposite side of this large open like barn type building, on the opposite side, your left hand side, there's another bar that does the same thing on the ocean side of the Silken Sail. Otherwise, a lot of the decor in here is obviously sailor kind of based. It is very much kind of decorated as if it was like just filled with old, kind of like kind of notice like damaged goods from different ships where you can kind of like spot a keel here and there. You can see like different areas where there's like the actual like wheel from a vessel. But overall, it's one of those things like when something gets like repaired or like replaced on a ship, it often kind of ends up in a place like this where it becomes like a cool little item that keeps to the theme. But overall, it does sit pretty similar to the Crooked Skinner, where it was like everything here is by and large something else that was trash turned into what makes this place a viable bar. But this place is definitely like a bar in the sense of it is a bunch of room to sell people alcohol far more than it is meant to be a place where you like go and relax and drink. This is kind of like a club scene where it's like, I guess, yeah, there is probably a bar at some point and like a dance floor, but it's by and large like standing room. So it's like walking through this place. But while you're there, while Malchin is grabbing a drink, I guess I could have looked it up to actually remember the name of the people from the Silken. While Malchin is grabbing his loot, I think Erling is a young woman who's about like 30 years old, and she's one of the barkeeps here. And then the owner, Petrarch, as well, is one of the other people who's kind of moving around. Middle of the day, there's probably like 5 or 10 people in this place, but you can kind of tell like this place can have like 100 or so people before it feels busy. And I think there's no reason while you're there with Mouchin that you guys couldn't grab a free ale kind of thing.
Yeah, Davros would definitely take one while we're and drink it down quickly while we're waiting, and maybe kind of like toasting to Jinx when we get it. It's like, well, here's to not getting the plague.
Yeah, I've never turned down a drink before. I'm not gonna start now. I'll go ahead and guzzle one down as well.
So Erling would kind of talk you guys up at least a little bit while Mouchin is doing his thing. On like a certain level, these two kind of like adopted him a few months ago, and they're rather curious because he disappears from time to time, but otherwise tends to be pretty quietly like doing his job, going to sleep, waking up the next day, not really like ruffling any feathers, except for when he has to like bounce people, but then he disappears. And they've always started to like wonder like what he actually does in these times where he's like not there. But this is like the first time he's ever kind of like brought other people to the Silken Sail. So there's a certain level of like where this friendly bartender is definitely kind of chatting you guys up, like with the how do you know Malchin? Like what kind of things does he do when he disappears? Because we'll see him and then all of a sudden 2, 3 days goes by and nothing. Are you guys? And it's just one of those things. She's just kind of like looking for gossip, kind of friendly bartender.
I think Davros will be kind of cagey. Is like he'll just be like to her questions like, he's a bit of a mysterious one, isn't he? But otherwise not really answering anything, just kind of like agreeing with what she's saying about him, kind of, you know, um, having some secrets, but not sure what Malchin would be comfortable with, kind of giving away. He'll do his best to be kind of like cagey.
Now, don't be modest. I mean, Malchin is a true hero. I can't believe that he even has a regular job still. And then I'll like go off on a tangent, telling a tall tale about how Malchin saved my life from the ghost house.
Let me get a performance from you.
I mean, full on like embellishment to the next level. So 17 plus 6, so 23 total. And I'll end it with, and I would kill to see the look on his face, but to tell you the truth, I was near death and unconscious. So
Yeah, I'd say overall you tell a pretty gripping story. Kind of by the end of the story, you've got like the attention of some of the other like patrons of the bar. A few people kind of like already buying drinks, almost trying to keep you talking. But overall, I would say depending on how much time you guys have, like how much you have time on your mind here, this story is going to draw in a bunch of people who are basically going to start buying you guys drinks. And you'll see, maybe like an hour or two goes by instead of leaving this place where you guys just like become like the center of attention. And everybody is kind of like looking towards the three of you as like these almost like kind of mythical heroes as Jinx tells this story with a little bit of like full bellies from having maybe a meal at the silken sail, just kind of something plain, like almost like a meat broth with a little bit of bread, couple of ales behind you, and the idea of Sard's boats ahead. You guys are kind of looking at like early afternoon here when it kind of like gets back to your uh, forward thinking to, well, maybe we should be on our way. So when you guys prepare, what are you thinking there?
Oh, I'm just saying, yeah, Davros probably might have. No, he doesn't get like drunk, but he probably maybe has a maybe a one or two more than he probably should have while we are kind of being regaled by Jinx and then all the other stuff. He maybe looks a little not quite maybe a little queasy as he's walking. I rolled for my hit points and I rolled really low today, so I'm just essentially he's not looking his best as we get ready to continue on.
Gotcha. So maybe a little bit of overindulgence is why you're struggling today.
Yeah, I just figured, yeah, that's as good a reason as any.
Gotcha. Yeah. So as you guys are preparing to head out of the Silken Sail, is there any last minute thoughts before you basically make the probably like 5 or so minute walk down to Sards?
looks good to
Oh,
me. I'd say Jinx would definitely like try to stay focused, but probably got a little caught up in it. I don't know if I went like so over, but well, I guess I'd just roll what con check or something.
yeah, just roll a con. In the long run, this is far more like a question of how much do you keep your head in the game. Yeah, you're
Oh, I'm
definitely
so
solid.
fucking amped up right now. I just had the best time of my life. You guys basically had to drag me out of there. I'm the hype man.
Oh, Melchin, think Jinx just made you famous.
Yeah, see how that goes, but hopefully that might make my work as a bouncer easier.
I can see why you like that place. I mean, it's full of just straight up winners. Oh man, I could have spent the week there.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And spend your coin with drinks, and yes, no, there I will throw you out if you make trouble.
I don't think I've ever been known to make trouble. If anything, you'll catch me running away from it. But now that the guild is gone, gonna need somewhere else to lose my money. So as long as there's fresh ale and gambling, sounds like a plan to me, brother.
So heading outside from the Silken Sail, you guys have like the fifth pier that's kind of more or less directly in front of you. Um, there's definitely progression of people like around the streets. This is a little bit kind of a calmer of the part of the day as you're still like high-ish sun, but you're looking at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon as you guys kind of head out here, and you can head down to the fourth pier marked 239 there. There's a small little hut outside of it or out on the pier. You can see on the near side, there's like a single like long boat that stretches probably like 2/3 of the length of the shorter of the piers. And then there's a couple little rowboats on the opposite side, like 3 rowboats on the opposite side. But walking out to it, you guys can basically see that there's a little old man kind of like feet up on this little like makeshift building out on the pier, and he's basically inside of the shade, hat over his head, kind of blocking his eyes, and more or less just kind of like relaxed feet up. As you guys kind of walk forward, you see like a little bit of a movement where he kind of like peeks a finger, like pointing up on the hat to like take a look at you, and sees a few people kind of walking forward who don't like look entirely like trash. And you see as he like kind of like quickly like throws his feet down and is like, "Oh, welcome, folks, to Sard's. I'm Sard. I've got boats if you guys need a boat. How many do you have? You looking for a long boat? 500 gold for a long boat for the day." And he like smiles like real big, like with his 500 gold like lingering in the air.
Just the 3 of us today, so I don't think a longboat will be quite necessary. What about one of those? And Davros will kind of point to one of the smaller rowboats.
Well, rowboat's still a good choice. 20 gold down payment, 1 gold per 24 hours that you need to rent it for.
And I'm assuming you bring the boat back in one piece, that 20 gold, that's a returnable deposit, right?
I really hope so, because 20 gold's not going to buy me a new boat. I really do need you to return it, but it is what should guarantee that you bring it back to me.
I mean, certainly no intention of not. Just be honest, I've never rented a boat before, so not sure how this all works. But I think we can swing that, right? And Davros will look towards Malchin and Jinx, and he will start moving to kind of take out his pouch.
I'll be like that one friend who acts like they're looking for their coin purse for like an awkwardly long time, hoping somebody else says they got it.
Yeah, no, Malshin is not that one friend. He literally just look at Davos and see he's going for the coin purse. His coin purse is, yeah, sure, go ahead. The less I have to spend, the better.
Yeah, so Davros will look back towards Sard, and he will take out. Actually, mostly it'll be mostly real gold. So like 20 actual, or 20, I guess 21 gold pieces.
Definitely see a little bit more of a kind of like smile to him as he sees the lions being pulled out. And definitely like a little bit like of surprise to see, because you're a working man. You probably look the worst out of the 3 of this group, just as far as like what a blacksmith looks like. And he's quite surprised to see like this like ragtag group is pulling out gold pieces.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't look like the type who just has whole bunch of, probably not a bunch of gold. I mean, the staff that he's carrying, the quarterstaff is actually, even that, I don't know if it looks all that impressive.
It's one of those things where it can be a nice heirloom just as much as it not have any value. And that's one of those things that I think kind of can be deceptive for sure. Like a nice old cane might be something that like a family loves, or like somebody put a lot of love and care into, but the next person to own it might not think that it's worth anything, kind of thing. And effectively that thing just looks like it's got a beautiful kind of, I think I described it as the carving of like a kind of little like flame, almost like a torch at the top of it.
Right, and like an orangish wood, yeah. But otherwise, yeah, he does not look like not look like a wealthy person. So, but he will.
I didn't
Call.
necessarily say the wood was orange. I was saying Osage orange. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but like monkey balls, they look like green, like brains almost. Is like the kind of like fruit that those things grow. But Osage orange is like a really cool, like gnarled kind of wood where it like doesn't ever grow straight. Everything about it is like curves and knuckles and like big kind of protrusions.
Oh, okay. I misheard that then, um, or misunderstood the description.
It's a
Yeah,
really
but
good bow wood is part of why I described it because I love Osage orange.
gotcha. Um, yeah, so Davros will count out the 21 gold, and as he's going to hand it over, he's just like, just to clarify, that includes the ores, right? But otherwise, we'll hand over the gold, um, and then he's thinking we should only need it for one day, but just in case, and he'll hand over one additional gold, so 22 total.
Um, roll a d20 for me.
Uh, 19.
That he kind of like looks at you as you're like handing over this other gold. It's like, now, if you keep it more than a day, we'll take that out. You can keep that for now, and the ores are most certainly included. I need you to get back because I need my boat.
Right. All right. All right. And he will put back the one gold, and we'll get it back to you. Don't you worry. And yeah, then once kind of he's paid Sard, he'll turn back to Malshin and Jinx, and suppose we should get going then.
I just dropped a picture of Osage orange as a tree inside of the Crooked Skinner chat, and then the
Oh, okay.
fruit as well, like a monkey ball or Osage orange fruit.
Gotcha. See it. Yeah.
Part of when I say something's like a really good bow wood is it's also like a super fucking strong wood. Like you could beat the shit out of somebody with that and not break it. Which would make it a really good um damn, what's the druid spell? I can't think of what it's called.
Shillelagh.
Yeah, shillelagh. But that staff is 100% like a shillelagh as far as I'm concerned. That was part of why I was describing it like that, where the flame is up there to show you this thing is like fire related, but like a shillelagh is like effectively a very weighted hammer like staff where you take like the knuckle of where a tree turns into a branch and you make that so you have like 80% of the weight at one end of a staff. And like that's actually what shillelaghs are. Calling it something that's druidic is certainly just because shillelaghs are vaguely kind of like Celtic. But it was one of those things like with Gandalf, like surely you wouldn't take an old man's walking stick from him. That was what shillelaghs were. They were such a deadly weapon, but you've got like this old ass man who's like creeping on it, like walking with his back all hunched over, but he's also walking around with like a 30-pound staff that has 25 of it at this one end. Um, it's one of those things like hiding a weapon in plain sight kind of thing. But I imagine Osage Orange is probably one of the best things to make those out of. But yeah, you guys are all set here. Let's get a couple of D8s as you kind of like paddle out to Beacon Island.
3 for me.
Yeah, 3 for Malshin.
I got a 5.
Excellent. So yeah, Beacon Island is just kind of like vaguely off to the southeast of Tolis. It's actually part of the reason why I have this map kind of cut how I do, but I didn't actually prepare to share Beacon Island. But you're not really going there either. So from your perspective, paddling out there, Beacon Island is just a small island, about like quarter of a mile, half a mile, like 1 or 2 kilometers away from the actual docks. It's just off in the distance. It's kind of a reminder of if you're following the coast out at sea in the Bay of Taulis. If you go beyond that, you've passed up Tolus. Like, turn around. And it has 2 lighthouses that are on it. One of them is completely in ruins. You can just see kind of the foundation of. That is the one that is closest to Tolus in view. A little bit higher on like kind of the rocks of Beacon Island is the new White House that pretty much stands like taking up the whole island. You're talking about maybe like a football pitch, like a soccer field in size for this entire island. And there's a large lighthouse that takes up most of it. On the way out to this island, you can probably see at any given time uh, like 6 or 7 ships kind of like at anchor. So it's not like unfamiliar for like Malchin to see ships out at anchor at this point. And it's also not unacceptable or unforeseen that people could be traveling between Anchorage and not. Not all ships that are left out at Anchorage, out in this like kind of space between the docks and Beacon Island, are under quarantine. Some of them just can't stay at some of the larger docks that can take, like a frigate. So they have to come in, unload their wares, and then anchor out in a little bit more kind of deeper open waters, because there's only so many kind of like deep water piers at this dock. But you guys can kind of paddle out. Let me have, who's probably the weakest of you and like the most perceptive? Is it safe to say that's Jinx?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely the weakest. I'm -2 strength.
Yeah, you're not
Gotcha.
the only one.
Oh, you're minus on strength?
Yeah,
He's a
Malchin is
ranger.
the strong.
He's dexterous. That's what he lives by. But yeah, let me have you do a perception check from Jinx. As you guys are basically paddling out. It probably realistically is like Davros doing the actual paddling. I don't see any reason why a rowboat shouldn't be. Yeah. So 24. It doesn't take you long, kind of like paddling up some of the areas before like you pick out like one of the boats where like the name starts with a P, and you just kind of like start to navigate them towards it. By the time you guys get close enough to this boat, you already kind of like are spotting that like the name is fitting what you expect, where it starts with like a PA, and then you get closer and closer, and you guys can basically spot within a few moments that this boat that you are approaching is Parnas Jewel. Didn't prepare a rowboat. When you guys go to board the vessel, or I guess realistically, when you guys go to approach the vessel, you see no movement on the deck. When you are approaching this vessel, there's nothing to be seen. There's nobody aboard. The sails are all kind of put away. There's really nothing kind of happening with this boat other than it's just kind of, it's not listing in the wind. I can't think what it's called when the boat just kind of like tugs away from its anchorage, just following the wind. So everything just kind of is held in position as you approach this boat. There's no kind of movement coming from the ship. Do you have thoughts on how you would approach it? You are effectively approaching from the west, from the I think aft is the back of the ship.
Yeah, yeah. I was I was just about to ask if we saw anybody aboard. Do we see any like a means of climbing like a ladder or like on one of the somewhere we could essentially kind of row and tie tie off the rowboat and make uh, climb aboard?
I think you'd probably be looking at no. Just because it is under quarantine, I don't think there would be any reason to say that there's like an easy ladder set aside. Nobody is expected to come onto or leave this boat. So I think it's this point you're basically seeing like you could throw something aboard and try to, like make your way like that, or you're looking at like following up the anchor line from like the bow of the boat like up towards the front, like effectively forward on the ship is the bow, so it's probably anchored along that like easterly position. You could follow that anchor line up onto the boat, but that's like you know far more kind of like a slack line walking than it is like climbing. Which if somebody can do it, it's Malchin.
Yeah, maybe if Malshin can get aboard and drop over a rope for the other two, or
I'll like hold my hands out and say to Malchin, I'm not much for climbing. I hate blisters and I don't have any rope. So, you mind?
Yeah, no worries. I can do that. See if I can find some rope or anything when I get on board to throw down.
All right, wait, are you going to try to throw a rope up and climb aboard, or are you trying to walk up the anchor?
I'm gonna try to walk up the anchor.
Okay, okay.
So, before he goes up there, I just want to like amp him up a little bit from the story earlier. Does this look like it's about to be difficult, or does it look like he's just gonna be able to like get right up there?
I mean, from your perspective, are you dexterous?
No, look. Well, I had +3, I guess. So, okay. Well, regardless, I'm just gonna say like the legend of Malchin continues, and then I'm gonna give him bardic inspiration. It's only good for 10 minutes, so don't be hesitant to use it if you need to.
Gotcha. So when you go to like hop out onto this rope, and kind of like run up slash move up the anchorage, are you going to try to kind of make it like acrobatic and like actually run up the rope, or do you want to do something maybe a little bit more strength related and try to like hang from the rope and kind of crawl your way up and onto the boat? What are you thinking for your approach to this?
I mean, I'm going for the acrobatic approach.
So Solid just going to try to basically get up to the rope. You can kind of paddle your way up to this rope kind of coming out of the water, and try to kind of step onto it and then run aboard. As far as I'm going to say here, let's go for Davros. Let me have you do a kind of athletics to see if you can like steady the boat where he's like next to this rope and like preparing to hop onto it, to see how well you can steady it for him to do that. And then let's go for the acrobatics from Malchin. Assuming each of you have proficiency, I think you guys have already, yeah. So got an
Yeah.
11 from Davros, and then
so it'd be a 14 total.
Yeah, that's. I'll use the. Oh, sorry. The bardic inspiration. It's a 1d6 or is it lower?
1d6.
Yeah. Just make sure that I'm not doing that wrong. The funny thing is, I don't have proficiency in acrobatics.
Gotcha, but your dexterity is pretty high. So what is that? Another +3?
Yeah, I added that. So it's 23 total.
Oh, nice, nice. The new roller lets you set up the modifier.
Yeah, you can
Hell
like
yeah.
give a +3 and things.
Yeah, so you guys kind of like time it, and you do a pretty good job of kind of like between the crests of a few waves. You actually like kind of like watch as like the like main waves are coming in from the east, and there's like auxiliary waves that are kind of coming in from the north, and you kind of like time two of the crests at the same time, so it's like a longer period of kind of holding them together as you kind of like move forward. Malchin kind of like steps up over onto the rope and pretty quickly and with alacrity kind of like runs up this like 60-foot kind of spans and makes it up to the prow of the ship, past the prow, and basically like getting close to the actual front of the ship is when he kind of like dives off of the rope, and kind of like rolls over onto the front little area of the forward section of this ship.
Could you remind me what like the season is? Like how cold? Like if we were to fall into the water, just how cold do we think it would be?
We kind of got to go to the same season, as it's basically a 1-for-1 year wise. So for any given one of you, probably except for Malchin, falling into the water is a everything needs to change immediately because you need to get yourself warm. There's probably this is the North Sea, and from the more I kind of like look at Tolis, Pramol isn't just like the spans of the coast. I think I have it in the information channel where you can still see like a full map of the continent or of the continents. Yeah, like if you look at the Empire of Pramol, um, I've read more into it, and I think this is more like the known landmass. Almost as if this is like Europe or like Eurasia, and there's still kind of like the southern hemispheres that are essentially like unknown. So when you talk about being in the what is it, the white wind sea, it's probably like say like German waters kind of thing, where you're like Arctic Sea is the normal. So I would say in general, even in summertime, this is probably one of the colder seas. This time of year, you're probably talking about um, death pretty quickly. But like, if you fall in, you probably need to abandon and go warm yourselves or find fresh clothes that you could like immediately strip, dry yourself off, uh, kind of thing.
Gotcha, makes sense.
It is not necessarily Arctic though, where you're like drop your hand into the water and your hand's going to freeze like when you pull it out into the air. It's just one of those things. I think you lose heat like 16 times faster when your flesh is wet. You just need to get dry far more than anything. But without like a fire already started, it's one of those things where it needs to become your priority immediately.
Right, so like a matter of minutes, not hours or days, that you could actually survive before the cold kind of overcame you.
So we're right after 5 o'clock here. It's like about 5:10. Let's take a break here and come back like 5:20, 5:25 ish. 20 minutes after the hour, 25 minutes after the hour.
Sure, yep, sounds good.
All right.
Are you there, Jira?
Yeah.
Hey, what are the odds on that game? Like when you win, is it just even money or does it give you like a big payout?
Well, that's what it is it's like even money on that bet. But when you do the alternate, like you're doubling it to roll the third d6.
Oh, I get you. Okay. So
So
it's
I
pretty
think
variable.
realistically, if you had more money, it becomes more in your favor because, like, if you roll, say you've got like 100 gold to gamble, you go in for the 25 minimum, you roll 2 1s, you then need a 5 or a total of 10 to win. So you double it to roll another d6, have a 1 in 6 chance of winning, or a any of them you could roll another d6 if you double it to 100 from there.
Right. Yeah, that's not I mean, I wouldn't have played that for one roll, realizing that. I thought it was gonna be like whatever the payout is for I can't think of the name of the game. What's a dice game called? Craps. I was thinking it was gonna be like craps, where it's like whatever the percentage is, they like subtract out. But I guess it makes sense if you're gonna
I'm
like
sure it's
gamble.
built off of craps, but Matt doesn't like know how craps works, and I certainly don't know how craps works.
Oh, well, all they do is just take like the basic idea of craps is that whatever the percentage chance roll is like the house gets a favor. You know what I mean?
No, that's what I mean. Yeah.
But I mean that game sounds like it's way more complicated than like just like, oh, I'm gonna put it all on one hand. You know what I mean?
It definitely is because, like, if you've got thousands to play and you still do the 25, I mean, there's a certain amount of you could roll what up to a total of like 12 times basically, where you still have a chance to roll like all ones to get the 12.
Yeah, that could be insane. But with craps, it's just like super simple. It'll be like whatever the percentage chance is of like rolling that, it just like favors the house a little bit. But when you win, if you bet on something that's like a 1 in like 5 chance, when you win, it's like, 4 to 1. So you sort of have like that like long shot payday.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like it's one of those things where in the long run, like going to gamble, like going to the casino in game, some of those games make sense. But as far as something where it's kind of what I need, like just a solid game where it's just like, all right, let's sum up your gambling across the week in a single roll. That's definitely a pretty harsh. That's why, like, as soon as like I'm looking over it, I'm like, oh shit, this is
No, no,
fucking
I'm
rough.
okay. I'm okay with summing up like the gambling in like a single roll or like skill check or something like that. I'm totally cool with that.
Well,
Uh,
I think in the past though, we did it as like I think I had you do like compare D20s and then how much you actually like came up or went down. Like the compared D20 was just whether you won overall or lost overall. And then I think I had you roll a D100 to see how much of your total bank was either into the positive or into the negative. That to me is so much simpler and a better way to sum up a week of gambling because it's not just saying, like, that gambling game reminded me of when we went on the casino boat and I sat down with all my money at the poker table. And within like 20 minutes of getting onto this like 7-hour cruise, I was already broke.
well, but that's the difference though. You don't want it to be summed up when you're on the cruise. I do want it to be summed up when we're like playing the game so it's not eating up other people's times. It would be cool if you did something. I mean, we could come up with it obviously on our own, but just like randomly where it was like, you basically go all or nothing. And if you like roll in a certain percentile, you can like X your money. So if you're just trying to double your money, you just have to roll over 10, 11 through 20. But if you want to like 10x your money, you would have to roll a 19 or a 20. And if you wanted to 20x your money, you would have to only roll a 20. Otherwise, you lost it. Something like that, you know?
Yeah.
So you like most of the time could go for like the 50-50 coin toss, but if you're feeling like crazy one time, you're just like, all right, I'm going all in for that 20. And then any other result, it's all gone. But on the 20, you like 20x your 100 gold or whatever. Or I mean, if the
Oh,
house wants. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, sorry, I was gonna say I'm back.
Hell yeah, I was just like coming up with we were just kind of brainstorming random ideas for how my character's in-game gambling problem can be resolved.
Okay.
Well, it'll go over well because that's how Dalton got in trouble in the first place.
Yep, just kept. I mean, he. I think he won more often than he lost, but he just kept borrowing more to try and goose his winnings even more. And sorry, yes, I'm back as well.
That's perfect though, because it all kind of like ties in. You like see one of like your buddies and like adventuring partners, and you're like, oh, don't go down this path. I don't want to have to rescue your ass.
Well, I think the most hilarious part of it was of all of Dalton's gambling problems, that's not even what got him into trouble. It got him into the life that got him into trouble, but it didn't get him into trouble. So we effectively have Malchin just kind of ran up the anchor onto the aft of the ship, onto the forward section. So you are kind of like looking over the rest of the ship right now, Malchin. You've got the actual prow kind of like sticking off towards the others, and I can't put them too much further to the east because I have like another level of the ship over there. But basically, where you're at, there's a large ballista that kind of overlooks the front of the ship. You're probably about 2 or 3 feet up above like the lower level. That's kind of like just in front of you towards the first of the, I don't know all the name of the different masts, but it's basically like a smaller mast at the front area here. You've got another, what is it, ballista. There's the main mast. You can see 2 different entryways to the cargo holds with like steel like doors kind of blocking them. And at the main mast, there's a stairway that kind of leads down into the ship. And then at the back of the ship, about like 5 or 6 feet above the main deck, you can see like the large I can't think of what the steering wheel is, but the steering wheel and a smaller, I feel like that's like a steering sail. Again, all of the sails are down. There's no like sails or like oars out on this vessel. This vessel's kind of dead in the water here. But you are up on top of the ship. The others are still down below. The waters are still frigid and not the type of thing that you want to get into. But what kind of thoughts do you guys have at present?
Up on the boat, Merchant is gonna look around to see if he can find like rope or a rope ladder or anything like that that you can throw down.
I see no reason to say that there wouldn't be. Um, I don't even think like a rope ladder. I feel like it's one of those things. It's almost like the rope netting. I think of like how like the army uses these things to like their, like 15 or 20 people could climb it at the same time to like climb up the side. Maybe not as wide as that, but say like 5 or so feet wide of like a rope ladder where it's just a really thick rope netting that you can throw over the side. And they could climb up through that. So when the two of you go to do that, that's just going to be an athletics check from either of you. Pretty low DC, but if you do fail, you're probably going to fall back into the boat and potentially into the water if you roll really poorly.
Yeah. Before we head up, can Davros essentially he's got some rope. He's going to try to throw a rope up to Malchin, and because he wants to tie off to try and tie the rowboat so that it does not float away while we're up aboard. He wants his deposit back.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why you can't do that. Don't see any reason why there wouldn't be rope in the boat already kind of attached to its prow. So I'd say in the long run, this is definitely just that's pretty much just a given check to make it. You guys can tie up the boat and then just do the athletics to see how you climb.
Uh-oh.
You threw the nat one.
I did a total of 7 with the modifier. I saw where you could add the +3 for his strength, and then he's proficient in athletics. But yes, nat 1 on the D20.
All right. Yeah,
And I
just kind of like a.
Oh, sorry.
What are you thinking?
If he's like about to slip or fall or something like that, can I try to assist him? Like grab his arm or something?
Yeah. What are you thinking?
Do you want to describe the scenario? My bad. I didn't mean to like interrupt there. I wanted to like react, but I didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I would say we're gonna end up having, as you start to climb off, I think first off, let me get a D100 from you, Davros. And let me kind of like read this from that. So as you're kind of like climbing out of this, you're like working with like the crests of some of the waves, 64 word. Yeah. So you're kind of like halfway up, and there's just a point where a couple of the waves have kind of combined to kind of put like the crests at the same point. And the ship itself does like a pretty steep like dive down into also like the I can't think of what the lower portion of the waves are also like coinciding together, so they're extra low, and basically the ship is doing like a big dive down into the water, and you're just getting this point where there's almost like 20 feet of movement in just a quick little instant, and it's just enough that you're a sure-footed man on a steady firm ground beneath you. But at this moment here, it's not the same thing as working in your foundry. Being at sea is a very different beast, and all of a sudden you just have this like dive in the actual netting. Um, I'm gonna say what it comes down to is it's far more like Davros is like getting kind of like thrown, and maybe like your foot slipping gets you kind of like tied up into the net. But this is much more like, can you prevent him from like knocking his head up against the rowboat as he hangs upside down? So let me just get a you could either do a dexterity save with advantage, Davros, or I'll do a dexterity check from both of you. What do you guys want to do?
I'll just do a regular dexterity check if Jinx, if you want to do one as well.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Will each roll one?
Yeah, solid move with the two of you. It's definitely the type of thing where he's like kind of falling. Davros goes to like kind of like grab onto the net and kind of catch himself. Jinx is able to like kind of like go down to almost like cradle your head as the rowboat kind of like comes up on like the next crest of the waves. Effectively, you can kind of help him back up onto the rope, and you guys can climb out from there.
Much obliged, Jinx. Never did have much in the way of my sea legs.
No worries, my friend. I know you'll be watching my back as well.
Actually, let me put that at the real cost of your nat 1 there. Is roll a constitution saving throw for me, Davros.
All right.
That should be pretty solid. You feel the movement of this ship in a way that is unnatural. You don't like it. I don't know if you, Justin, have any issues with seasickness, but this is one of those things where it's like your body is well aware that it could be sick. You're fine, but like your body like understands like wrong little bit of like I don't know, have like the wrong meal before being in this situation, and you might be returning that meal to the sea, kind of thing.
Yeah, he's thinking he probably shouldn't have ate and drank as much as he did while we were at the Silken Sail, because yeah, that could be coming up shortly. But he's trying to like put on a brave face, you know.
But you all are otherwise on board this ship. Kind of same description, kind of sits for all of you about what you guys are seeing here. What kind of thoughts do you have while you essentially are sitting atop the Parness Jewel?
You said there was a door leading into. Was there a door at some place, or just the like the hatch here?
Got the two cargo hatches that are kind of in like the center of the ship, and then there is kind of like a wall around the stairs that lead down. Like you can see this wall extends like up beyond the deck. Um, I don't think you can see that there's stairs that lead down from there, but effectively downstairs is right there.
Gotcha.
It's not a secret once you guys start exploring this like upper deck.
Yeah, I
Yeah. So,
think. Oh,
oh,
sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Would you have had a look around already, Malchin?
I would have like cursor look, but I would have been focused on getting like the rope to throw down for you to climb up.
Okay, well then I guess I will. I'll just like, without going too crazy, just survey the area and see. Do we see any signs of movement? Is there anybody on this boat? Do we hear like, anybody down below? Just kind of like a sensory check, I guess.
Um, are you the only person proficient in perception?
Malchin is as well.
Gotcha. Let me get a perception from Malchin and Jinx.
18 total for me.
Yeah, and 7 total for me.
Looking over the deck, there's no movement. That's pretty much what Malchin's had kind of a sense and kind of time to spot. I don't think it would be crazy to say it's kind of like out of view to spot that there's another entrance on the top deck. But I do think it is the type of thing where if you guys actively move around, you would be able to spot that still. But overall, like in Malchin's kind of cursory view, there's no immediate threats. And his focus has kind of been on you guys here. When Jinx gets aboard, I think you kind of pick up on there's an eerie kind of like otherworldly kind of like sound coming from like below deck. And you can't quite make it out yet. But when you kind of like get everybody to like be quiet and like focus on it, you start to just pick up that there's like a rhythmic kind of chanting coming from down below. And this chanting just continues unabated.
So obviously we'll keep our voice down and everything. I bring it to their attention. Doesn't sound like the type of thing you'd hear on a plague ship. Seems relatively odd.
Something weird's going on. Davros will kind of gesture, kind of once he spots the stairs leading down, and looking back to Jinx and Malchin, but came here to investigate.
Investigate we shall.
All right.
And this like cargo grate, is this solid, or is it something that is it like bars that you could actually like look through and see something below?
I think from the forward one, you could spot. Ooh, I don't think I have this fog created in a way where I can show just it to you, but I'm gonna try. So from the forward one, you could probably kind of like look down, maybe spot a little bit more than that, and kind of spot like a couple of like dining tables, and like a circular table. But it seems like kind of a sort of dining hall of sorts. And then from the stern one towards the back of the vessel, you can spot two beds that are right below it. So again, if you guys are looking at this, just scroll kind of to the east on like the full map, and you should be able to see where I kind of revealed what you can like kind of look down below and see.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, I don't see anyone. And Davros will kind of looking back to the others, kind of will start to move. He'll, I guess, trying to be quiet, so moving slowly down the stairs, starting down the stairs. Is there any light coming from down below, or any signs
Uh,
of any?
I would say you guys have light coming in from above as you're probably looking at like 3:30, 4:30 ish in the afternoon. Um, so it's probably also coming from the west as well and is shining towards the east. But the actual vessel itself doesn't seem to have any lights lit below. What is everybody's stealth modifiers, and are you proficient?
I
Um,
am. Sorry. Davros is +3, not proficient.
yeah, the same with Malshan.
I'm +4 not, and that includes that bard thing.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, all of you have +3 dex. Excellent. So kind of moving slowly down those stairs. Everybody's going into the lower deck.
After you, Malchin. I'm trying to go last. I'm always looking to be in the back.
All right. And Malshan just like look at you a bit. Let's make sure you don't stay too far back in case someone managed to get up behind us for some reason.
Of course not. I'm right behind you.
So, Melton, did you want to take the lead? Davros can follow like right behind if you want, or you can lead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Malshan.
I thought we were talking about who was getting third, first, second.
The Mountains leading, Davros, and then Jinx.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So when you come down to this lower level, you can see at the end of the steps, like straight ahead of you. Probably should have revealed that in a way. Let me go for straight ahead of you. You can see an open door that seems to lead to the side of the ship. and it's probably enough to spot that there is an oar right there. Whoops. So you can kind of spot like this is like the engine of sorts. You can kind of see like somebody would sit here and row. Um, but that's just kind of straight ahead of you as you're coming down those stairs. You can see some of the kind of like galley area as you look over your left shoulder to the east towards the aft of the ship. And then when you look to the stern, it's like 5 or 10 feet, and you can see that there's just like a kind of like curtain pulled across to be like a makeshift door just beyond your sight there. What are you thinking?
Yeah, Malshin is like looking into the galley area. Just does he see like any like if it's been any use lately? Leftover plates or
Just like
pro-
looking around, or are you going to start to kind of like poke around and touch stuff? Are you doing visual or are you doing physical?
he's just gonna do visual, just like look around.
Gotcha. Give me a perception check. So as Machin kind of like steps down and kind of like turns towards the galley, Davros kind of comes up to that same view, and then you've got Jinx still kind of on the stairs.
Yeah, got a 17.
So looking around, there's stuff out. There's not necessarily like food that has been prepared and like is ready to eat, but there's also not necessarily food that is like out and clearly like rotten or anything. There's just kind of like the things that you spot are just kind of in a weird like in between of somebody's probably like not been touching this for days, but it's also not necessarily like nobody's touched this for 2 weeks. It's somewhere between say like 3 weeks and a weekish, or 3 days and like a weekish kind of thing, that you're kind of like just like assuming like, you look at like a tomato and it's crinkled as if it's like starting to get overly ripe, but it's not like super like gushy rotten. And I think that's kind of like the overall vibe. Is everything's well ripened, but not like rot.
As we're like coming down here, can we tell we're like noticeably getting closer to the chanting sound? Can we kind
I
of
think
see
by
like
this
where?
point, everybody could hear the chanting. You're definitely getting closer to it just by going below deck. But you don't have like a uh, direct like direction that's telling you like somebody's chanting 5 feet to your left. It's still like obscurely coming from the ship.
I got you. I got you. And we don't have at this point in time enough of an idea to see like where the next stairs down would be or anything.
No, from where you guys are, you basically can see like the galley, and then you can see like there's a little like sitting room up towards the front, and you've got that like blocked off area towards the back. And then you could go into like the rowing room directly in front of you, but those are kind of like the three places you have. There's probably two doors at the front of the ship, at the aft section. One kind of central beyond that like circular table, and then one kind of to the right of that circular table.
I think Davros is going to start towards kind of moving east through the galley, kind of towards, I guess, this door. Is this the like kind of right here? Is this the door you're talking about?
Well, there's basically like that door, and then there's another door directly to the right of it. They're basically two doors right next to each other.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So he's going to look back towards Malchin and Jinx, and then go to try to cautiously maybe open this door.
Gotcha. So opening that door, I think that one is all just kind of storage. As you kind of open it up, you're just going to see some kind of dry stock in there. Might see some like vegetables, like some grains. But mostly I'd say that's just like dried food storage. Nothing about that room seems terribly off, as that's realistically like the stuff that's meant to last kind of inevitably on a voyage.
Gotcha. So he will kind of go to reclose the door, kind of softly if he can, and then move towards the door beside it. And same thing, go to try and kind of cautiously, slowly open it.
Everyone just kind of watching Davros's lead at this point.
So I think right now Jinx is nervously reaching down for his tinderbox. Oh, what's the light situation like? Is it pretty dark behind me in that hallway?
Right now, like the light would be coming from the sky, from that like hold grate above you. Unless you guys are creating light, there's no light being cast from down here.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was thinking. Lack of natural light. So yeah, I would like reach down to my side, grab my tinderbox, and like reach as if I was about to pull out a torch, and then realize that I never bought torches. So I will just like nervously light a cigarette instead, and then I'll just kind of back into this like corner right here.
Torches are not expensive. If you wanted to have bought torches, you are more than welcome to.
And Davros could have given him a torch if he wanted to.
Yeah, I'm good either way. I just thought it was kind of funny because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna remember to get torches now.
So heading further into that room, you can see that there are positions for 3 people to sit and effectively row this boat if there were no wind at all and it was like dead in the water. And then you can open that door towards the aft section there. You see a nicer kind of room set up here. There's a few kind of like dressers, a few little like shelves that are kind of filled with some spare knickknacks, and then a bed kind of set to the like central portion of the ship here.
So Davros is going to he's going to move in at this point as he kind of heads inside, and presumably there's less light coming into this room. He is going to um, light his lantern. Um, there's a bullseye lantern.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're probably looking at it's pretty dark to kind of like look away from the doorway. But with the bullseye lantern, when you keep that focus wherever you're looking, plenty of light.
Yeah, so he is thinking this. I mean, he doesn't have too much experience on ships, but thinking maybe this is like the captain or some sort of officer's thing. Um, he's going to start looking around for any sign of like a logbook, or if there's a desk that like a writing desk or something like that that might be where he would start his. But essentially looking for some sort of like log or writing. On and like if there's a I guess that's what he's kind of looking for here.
Roll an investigation.
And that is -2, so 15 total.
Roll a D100 for me. So looking through some of the shelving, you do find like an actual like journal of sorts. This person is lettered enough that they have like basically written about part of their gives you a nice little clue right off the bat, and you're kind of like hopeful maybe this is the captain, kind of assuming it's likely that like very few people on most voyages are probably actually literate. But as you kind of like not sift through it, but skim through it, kind of taking like a quick kind of look over things, hoping to find what you might be able to find. You do start to piece together that this is somebody who serves underneath somebody else, and the more you kind of like put things together, the lone room, it's not like a door, but it's got like a little bit of a door to kind of lock things off. You're looking at like kind of an officer's quarters of sorts, and don't necessarily know like what level of things they are. But as you kind of like look through, um, let's see, roll a 58.
Yep.
Roll, what is it, like a D20 for me, please?
Seven.
Um, yeah, you find like kind of like set up against the wall, a really kind of like beautifully ornate, like javelin spear at first, and when you kind of like pull it down, from this point, you can kind of see this is like a whaler's harpoon, and you can just kind of see from like the actual like grip of this thing and kind of like the length of the actual like metal like tip point. Um, this thing is something somebody adorned and made with love. Like the actual handle is extremely well made and hand carved. And then you can see there's like layers and it's like etched into the actual steel. How many folds? There's like hundreds of folds into this steel to kind of make like a Damascus kind of look to it. And it's almost like folded into this like triangular pattern. But effectively, you just found a magical lance. But again, since it's aboard a vessel, it is a magical harpoon.
Yeah, that would definitely catch Davros's eye, especially being a smith. He'd be able to, recognize the craftsmanship. So he would, uh, yeah, he would go to take it and maybe like heft it in like heft like the balance and seeing the quality, he would, yeah, I think he would go ahead and I don't know how he would carry it. If it's something he can sling,
Type of
essentially.
thing, like yeah, cut off like 5 feet of rope, tie it like to each side of it, and make a quick like shoulder sling. It's gonna be cumbersome to walk through a ship with it, but in the long run, this thing's meant to be on the ship. Um, that's one of those things where technically a lance probably would never exist on a ship, but that's just kind of how we flavor it.
Yeah, but he will. Yeah, he'll take that, and like you said, yeah, make a little kind of shoulder strap. He'll probably also, while he's doing that, so he's not too encumbered, as he does still have his maul, so he would probably actually take that off and just like lay it against like the wall, essentially replacing the maul with this lance.
One for one. My well-worn blacksmith small for your magical harpoon.
Yeah, he's got, yeah, he can always get a new maul, but this is much nicer. Yeah, and then he will kind of, if the others had waited outside, he would kind of go to rejoin them.
Your
You
maul
know,
was a two-handed maul, right? Like it's the one that's like
yes,
your character's holding there. Yeah, so you guys would notice, like, I think Jinx, you kind of described like you're just like stepped into that room, but you're still like looking after them, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna basically just be like light my cigarette, realize I didn't have a torch, maybe get a torch from them, and then fire it up. And then I guess like maybe when I look over and see Davros with this fucking lance, I'm just holding my cigarette up like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I think it would be incredibly obvious to you guys that he goes in there with this heavy, massive maul, and he comes out with this like ornate, beautiful Damascus harpoon.
Straighten up, Jinx. You're welcome to the mall if you. So kind of, he's like kind of as he says that he's kind of looking a little, you know, not sure about, you know, if a scrawny guy like Jinx is going to be able to use his use that mall, but his fine craftsmanship.
Oh, yeah, really. That is a nice mall. Maybe I will grab it after all. I mean, and then I'm gonna look down and I'm holding like a boomerang and like a flute. Like, are you serious, bro? Guys seem awfully casual about the ritual or whatever that's going on here. Are we ready to keep moving?
I uh yeah, Daps will kind of like at that he'll kind of like snap out and kind of realize, yeah, there is something uh weird we still need to investigate here. He got a little distracted by the nice weapon that he found, but yeah, he is ready to keep going.
Yeah, we're gonna check the other side now. Find something else.
Yeah, so if I have the torch lit at this point in time, I'll start kind of creeping around that side as they're kind of coming my way. And I'll definitely have like a little bit of a laugh at Davros there.
What side do you mean? That side? You're gonna go west?
Yeah, yeah, just kind of creeping around like the other part of the ship.
So just kind of like maybe pushing aside the curtain with your boomerang, kind of like holding the torch out to shine a little bit of light in that direction. You'll see that there's basically like another curtain on kind of the north side of this room to kind of block off the view like to the north of you, to the right. You can see kind of like a desk chair inside of there, a little table like kind of filled with, I feel like that's meant to be candles, and then probably like a little bit of a bookshelf. But otherwise, this seems to be kind of like a study of sorts. And I think if you looked in deep enough, you could see that there's a desk there too.
Yeah, I'll just kind of like just out of my peripherals look at that, but I'm really just kind of getting trying to get the layout of the ship.
Gotcha. Yeah, so there's no threats to be had like immediately there. So moving aside the next curtain is probably the next thing that like gets you like layout of the ship. Malchin's just kind of following behind Davros. Are you sticking into the gal? You're following through.
Sorry, yep, he's following.
So by the time you push aside the next curtain, you'll see like the beds that you guys could see from the actual other grate above, sunlight kind of coming down into this little room. You can see stairs down ahead of you on the north side of this room, as well as a door that's kind of like 90 degrees to the stairs, but the stairs are like 60 degrees to the ship. So you can kind of see that there's like a right angle of sorts at that kind of like northern perspective of the ship, and I'm drawing in my shadow. But you can kind of see like that area there. There's the door to the left, the stairs down to the right.
All right, yeah, I'll just point that out to them as they're coming up. Stairs.
Davros will nod, but he'll gesture towards the door, and should as well check that out as well.
Yeah, all right, I'll what is it, a door handle or is it another curtain or
It's like I'd say this is probably closer to the other door, like where Davros kind of spotted that. Like there was a just like a pull on that like central door to the storage. And then this is almost like there's a kind of like hole in the actual door, and you can kind of like lift just like a bar that almost like sits kind of in between. So it like latches the door, but it's just meant to keep the door from swinging more than it's meant to lock the door. And you can kind of see there's no light coming from through this door. But effectively, yeah, you can just kind of like lift this little piece of wood to move it out of the way and then open the door pretty much in either direction to pull it open.
Okay, I'll lift the latch and just kind of push in if I could.
So pushing it in, you can't get the door like fully through before you kind of feel like a little bit of like back pressure against it, and you can kind of hear like I don't know, kind of the sound of like linens against the floor. You kind of feel as you're like pushing up against a bed on the other side of it. But as you kind of open up into this other room and kind of shed some light in there, you can see a few bunks ladder up to the level up above you. Um, but otherwise, you're in just kind of like a more or less crew quarters.
All right, I'll like step in and just kind of like take a quick look, and then like to anybody that's paying any attention, make it very clear that I've done my part leading the way. Just like awkwardly stand off to the side and not move.
All right, so we're heading downstairs now.
Davros will nod and he'll move and he'll look to Melchin. He'll kind of like offer his hand, but he'll be ready to lead if that's what is preferred.
Masha can lead, no problem. But as we're like getting closer to the stairs here, is the chanting or like sound getting louder as we're getting closer here, or is it still like the same?
By the time you get to the stairs, you guys can tell that the chanting is coming from below. So we're doing Malchin, Davros, Jinx.
Yeah.
So once again, if you guys scroll a little bit to the east, you should see the lowest level of the ship here. As you kind of like come down these stairs, like initially there's that like little turn before you can kind of feel you're walking up against the actual side of the ship. And it's a little bit more properly like east to west kind of facing. You can feel the waves a good bit more at this level. You can almost kind of like feel the moisture on the edges of the actual ship's kind of sides at this point. And you can start to kind of smell like a lot of the scents of things that would be stored in a ship as you kind of get down here. It smells a lot more like kind of herbs and kind of spices, and then you kind of like come to a realization like that's not really just like things in storage. There's like smoke and incense kind of on the air. But as you guys kind of come down here, there's buckets, barrels, kegs, chests. There's all kinds of things in storage. You can see a door kind of directly ahead of you on I think that's the starboard side of the ship. You can see a door directly ahead that has kind of like metal bars on the very aft section of the ship that is very clearly, I don't know why I said aft, I meant bow section of the ship. That is very clearly like the like a galley of sorts, or not a galley, like a jail cell of sorts. You can see that there is another, I think, door kind of directly to the south of you that leads back towards the aft, towards the stern of the ship, off to the west. But that is south of where you are, Matchin. But otherwise, you're in like the storage of the ship. Still, there's been no signs of crew. And the chanting is louder. Allah Nathrakus Ralbenthrak. Allah Nathrakus Ralbenthrak. And it just continues on and on.
Yeah, Martian is gonna move to that southern door, door just south of him, and try to like peek in, see what he can see.
So when you kind of rotate around and look through this doorway, um, there's an actual like not portcullis, but there's like a window effectively in this door. And on the other side of this door, you can see a vastly open space. And in the center of it, kneeled down on the ground, there's a humanoid figure who's wearing like black cloaks and a big, like black draped kind of hat across his head. He has a small kind of like table set down in front of him with a brass bowl that kind of sits over some sort of ethereal fire that's just kind of like hanging in the air underneath this bowl, but between the table and the bowl. The bowl is smoking. This person is kind of like manipulating it with their hands. And the only thing that tells you that they are not a person is that those hands have no muscles, no skin. They are skeletal. This person is manipulating whatever this object is, and they seem to have no flesh at all. And as you kind of like peek through the door, let me have you roll a stealth check.
A 19.
I rolled a nat 19, and I have no modifier on my perception. So we are both equal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say meets beats. So as you kind of like look, this person is just going about this ritual. Whatever they are doing, they are just kind of performing it. They don't seem to look at you to notice you. And you are just kind of like looking through this little like hole in the door to see them on the other side of this. This is the first time that you've seen movement in this ship. The first time that you've seen any sign of anything resembling life on the ship. The chanting continues.
Yeah, moving back to that. So I saw some skeletal figure in the room here. Seems to be doing something, but no no clue about any of the crewmates or anything yet. I've seen hide or hear of them.
Strange. They're dead. Where are the bodies? But seems like whatever's going on, that thing in there's part of it.
Yeah, so
What you mean a skeletal figure?
I mean, it was dressed pretty dark, and I could see its hands, and it was just skeleton. No muscle, no skin, no anything. So yeah, that doesn't bode well.
Okay, I'm sorry I asked.
All we want to do is just kick in the door and rush it. take it by surprise.
I mean, it's not like we're just gonna leave, and then I'll like questioning, like, I mean,
No, don't think we want to leave that thing here.
then yeah, I mean, at least we have the element of surprise. Let's rush it.
Davros will nod and basically heft his. He's got the staff in one hand, the lantern in the other, but he'll nod to Malchin like, "Ready when you are."
All right. Davros, you want to be the one who kicks down the door? Or should we check if it's even locked for the first place? Or in the first place?
Davros will nod. He will try to quietly move up, sort of just like kind of before the door, and kind of like ready his shoulder to essentially try and barge through it.
Gotcha. So your first action is going to be trying to push through with your shoulder.
Yeah, kind of like maybe like taking like one little step back and then starting forward. Yeah, leading with the
Gotcha.
shoulder.
And then Malchin intends to kind of follow through, and Jinx probably like what, just like taking the doorway?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I mean, is it like once we get out past the actual stairway, is it like super cramped right there or not really?
I mean, there's a bunch of like the things that are like stored down here, but I wouldn't say it's super cramped.
Okay, well then
It
I mean, I'm not gonna hesitate. The plan is to rush in. I agreed to rush in, so I'm right behind him.
Gotcha. Are you going to like close in on the creature though? Is kind of why I say like take the doorway versus because you're a spellcaster still on some level.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna like go up and try to like play patty cake or anything. I definitely am gonna keep a little distance once we kind of go in. Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, when you guys are ready, I think let's go for initiative, and we're gonna start with Davros. Actually, I need a stealth check from Davros and then initiative as well.
All right, so 19 on the stealth. And a 13 for initiative.
Jinx is 15 total for initiative.
Yeah, and Malshan is 8 total initiative.
My bad. I know you told me that I can add you to initiative with this thing, but I am not finding it.
Oh, the
Oh, it's
way I
grayed
did.
out.
Oh, it's grayed out.
Oh, but I can still click it. So, guys should see yourselves on initiative there. If you can add your, oh, I guess it'll be clear. Jinx, if you click where it shows, like in the top left, where it's got two swords crossed, that'll bring up initiative, and it'll hide the dice for the moment, but it'll bring up initiative and allow you to add your initiative there.
Okay, cool. You guys see mine now?
Yarp. Yeah, so you've got your like you go to push through the door and there's no resistance from the door. The door just kind of like swings open. Might be the type of thing where you're a little bit like light on your feet. If you think that's something coupled with like the swaying of the ship that you want to take a test, you are welcome to. I'm not going to force you to take a test on that one. But this is one of those things where, depending on how much you expected resistance, you're pushing through and there is zero resistance.
Yeah, I think he was probably expecting the door to be locked. So that, and I think in combination with he's already a little unsteady on his feet, like there's a chance maybe he like trips or as he goes through.
Gotcha. So I'd say do a pretty low level dexterity saving throw just to see how you react to it. In general, I would say like easy is 5, like a normal is a 10. So depending on what you expect your DC to be to not stumble.
Oh yeah, that's a nat 20. So yeah, he's fine.
Yeah. You kind of have that moment where there's nothing there and you get like almost the feeling of like floating in air where your stomach does like the little bit of butterflies, but other than just kind of like almost riding this like anti-gravity point where the ship's moving and you just feel like you're like weightless in the air. It like kind of passes after a moment and effectively, you're 5 feet to move through that doorway, but you can easily make it to this figure. You see them kind of like kneel down in front of this room, sitting behind this bowl that is basically kind of like floating over this fire.
Yeah, so Davros kind of he rushes in. Maybe he like almost seems to like, but then almost like puts on like an extra burst as he doesn't face any resistance. Um, he gets to this thing, and I think he's already got his yeah, he's got the staff in one hand. Thinking maybe actually I don't know if he's smart enough. He's just gonna I think he's just going to swing out at the skeletal figure. He's got to assume that's not a good thing, so he is going to just kind of come in swinging. And I am going to use my inspiration to give him advantage on this. So that would be an 18.
Solid smack into this creature as you swing for it.
Sorry, I forgot to roll the damage.
Yeah, as far as possible, also for you, Jinx, if you can do all of your dice added together, so it's just the full die roll at once, that is ideal. So what is
Wait,
that?
what is that for?
Just when you go to roll, like part of why I like Owlbear's new setup is that you can have like your attack dice, and your like if you rolled proficiency dice, that proficiency, but you can also have like the damage dice, so it's just casting like 6 or so dice at once, and it includes everything for your roll.
Oh, okay. So like if I vicious mockery, just roll a d4 right away, regardless of if there's a save or not.
Yeah, especially with something like that. It's not like as big of a deal, but yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, for 11 points of damage, 4 of that is fire, 6 or 4 of it is bludgeoning. You'll see as the like mace or the because this is the staff, right?
yeah, so it'd be 7 bludgeoning
Yeah.
and 4 fire. Yeah.
Oh, does it work like that where your strength is part of the bludgeoning? So yeah, it's gonna do. You're like smashing into this creature's like bones, and there's just like almost like a puff of like dust as some of these bones are like atomized, just like in the actual clubbing of it. And little bit of damage is like you kind of have like this dust almost like catching fire in the air, but the actual damage like from the mace, the physical damage to this creature is supremely effective against this thing, as there's nothing but like calcium kind of that makes up this creature. As you smash into it, that is a extremely solid hit, and it's going to take 18 damage from that.
All right. That is all for Davros.
At the end of your turn, it is going to stand up and it is going to kind of like changing the chant that crosses its lips. It has no lips, it's a skeleton. It's going to kind of like change this noise that you guys start to hear, and the chant kind of like stops for a moment, and there's like another sound that kind of like emanates from this creature, and then this bowl, the little table, the fire are just going to kind of like blip out, and it's just going to kind of like move. I feel like that's probably about 30 feet away from you. Yeah, it's just going to kind of like blip out and all of a sudden like show up on a different kind of part of the ship. It is closer to the other 2 individuals at this point as this creature just kind of moves. And then it's gonna go to, I think Malchin was next in order.
Yeah, and I mean, technically, all of this is happening at the same time. So, and I was following Davros in, but could I like?
It's kind of the type of thing where you're like pushing into that room and it's blipping back behind you. And it's almost like you're like watching as like something's in front of you as you're walking into the room. And then immediately behind you, you kind of like hear like the pop and kind of like smell of like atmosphere kind of behind you as its magic kind of like moves this creature.
Yeah, then like I'm just gonna like turn in the middle of my rush to get to him instead. Back there. Phew. And then I'm gonna use a spell. It's let's see, how is this? It's a bonus action. I'm gonna try to do an ensnaring strike, but that's basically when if next time I hit a creature, so can roll it then.
Gotcha. Do you hold concentration once you cast Ensnaring Strike?
Yeah, I do. So let's see if I hit. That is let's see, 80. Yeah, I mean 18, 21 to hit and damage. That's just the regular hit damage, and then it's oh yeah, I could roll the other, but it has to succeed a DC 12 save or be hit by the ensnaring strike. It's a strength save. And it would take an extra 3 damage then.
All right. Total damage then? It took the extra 3.
Oh, okay.
And then is anything bludgeoning damage?
See, nope, everything is piercing damage. So that's a total of 9, I think. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then is it now restrained?
Yeah, it is restrained, and on each of its turn, it will. Let's see if I. Yeah, at the start of each of its turn, it will take another 1d6 piercing damage, unless it saves strength check. That's it for Malshan, I think. So yeah, bonus action. Yep.
I think at the end of your turn, it is going to
Sorry.
do the same.
I just
What was that?
remembered. He was damaged before this. I forgot about that.
It was indeed. Yep. You can do that. What is it? Extra D8?
Yeah.
So at the end of your turn, I think he's going to continue with that same chant. Damn, I don't know. I feel like usually legendary actions might be limited. I think it's probably too much to say he can teleport twice. You rolled a 1 though, so one more. I think he's going to chant, and it's going to have one of these crates that are filling this room is going to kind of like smash from within, and the skeleton is going to stand up, and then it's going to go to that skeleton. Yeah, I think it's going to move up to Malchin. So you probably are no longer concentrating because you released that. Oh wait, do you hold concentration
I
on
hold
that spell still?
concentration on that. So if I lose concentration, the spell will be removed as well.
Yeah, so it's gonna kind of like call forward a skeleton, and then this skeleton is going to move forward to you and strike out at you. Um, do, 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 do. Uh, should have a total of a 16 to hit you, and for 8 damage of piercing if it hits you.
Yeah, that just hits.
Yeah, so you just like hear like this barrel like to the center of the ship, just kind of like crack open, and like out of like this wood just comes this creature. Maybe not even like swinging at you with a weapon at first, and it's just like stabbing into you with its like actual like fingernails as it like reaches out for you. And then it's going to go uh to Jinx.
Yeah, I rolled an 8 for the con save, for the concentration.
Okay, so that's gonna drop then. Or do you have a con bonus at all?
No, that is with the bonus. The total
Gotcha.
8.
So that's on me then.
It is indeed.
Davros, we could use some help out here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I got my boomerang in my hand, so I'm thinking. No, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cast Bane on the zombie or the skeleton and the main guy.
Gotcha.
So it's DC 14 charisma.
All right, so the main guy's gonna be fine. Both of them are gonna get affected by it. My bad, I said that wrong. Both of them are going to get affected by it, as the skeleton has a -3 charisma.
Okay, and then for bardic inspiration, I'm just gonna like look at the stairs, and like for a second, maybe just inside my head, maybe if you were looking at me, you might see me kind of like nudge like I was gonna run away, and then I'll just say, "You got this, you got this," and I'm actually gonna give myself bardic inspiration, and then I'm gonna move forward and get up in this skeleton's face. Man, that Owlbear Rodeo has really added some super cool features. Those like tokens and all the rolling stuff is really nice.
I have to create a Bane though. They have constant, or they have blessed and hexed, but not Bane. So I'll have to create that. Let's see. I think it makes more sense that that's the end of its legendary actions. I am going to have it disengage from Malchin, and you're going to see as it kind of like almost just like reaches out a hand, and that object like with the bowl in the fire just kind of like pass with the creature, and it's basically just going to flee to the other side of this room at this point. um I'm sorry, that's going to feel really shitty for Davros, um but I think at that point it kind of has to kind of like flee across here, and then it's going to go to Davros.
Yeah, so Davros kind of gave like a satisfying grunt as he kind of connected with the staff, but then as the thing disappears, he um, he's turning back and hearing Jinx. He gives a kind of a bellow of rage and kind of goes into a rage as he rushes back out. Kind of even angrier as he sees the thing like well beyond where he can reach. So as he's kind of coming and rushing out here, he just kind of yeah, as he's given this shout of rage, is just going to swing with his staff at the skeleton, which is the only thing that he can get to. Okay, so let's see. The first D4 was the proficiency bonus, so it'll be a 21 to hit.
A solid hit.
And then for damage, it's going to be 3 fire and
Not sure it even has a chance to survive you.
4 bludgeoning.
Okay, so 8 and 3. Yeah, so just like kind of smashing.
Sorry, +2 for the rage.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I forgot about
Yeah, it's one of those things. I feel like that translates into the bludgeoning as well. So it'll be 5, 7, so 14 again. And then you said 4 fire, so 18
3
total
fire.
again. So 17. Yeah, I'd say smashing into this thing. You're basically looking at this creature like almost entirely disintegrating. Maybe like a portion of like the opposite side of it where you didn't hit, still like being formed as like a skeletal figure. But effectively that's like instantly into mortally wounded as you crash through that creature. And it's gonna go to I think end of your turn. It is going to raise another skeletal creature from one of these cases is going to crack open, and out will rise another creature from them. And it's going to go to Malchin.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna try to hit the one that we almost killed by now. Try to get that down. That is a natural 20.
Yeah, that thing, there's no way it can live through a crit at this point. It's on like 1 or 2 hits at this point.
Yeah, and I think the damage I rolled was, yeah, that's 4 plus 7, and then another 1d6 I would have to roll for that, plus 3. Yeah, and with that one gone, he's gonna move on to the next. Oh, and
Is that another crit right there?
that it is. Oh God, yeah, it is.
So this one does not already have damage on it. The 3 is the proficiency, 4 is your damage. So you're doing what, like 7? Roll another d6, or yeah, roll another d6.
Yeah, and I was gonna say don't think the. I was gonna put the favored foe on it, but I don't.
Does it take action economy to do that?
Oh, it's just a special. It doesn't take like a bonus action or anything. Just when I hit.
No reason not to.
So I'm not sure. Would that um, double as
There's
well?
no reason to have done it to the one that you already killed, because that one was already pretty much ready to die.
Yeah, and this one isn't like Hunter Smoke where you can move it over, so I wouldn't use it
So
before that.
roll a d6 and then roll 2 of whatever your favored foe is. Is the favored foe a d8?
No, it's a D4, so 2d4.
And then, yeah, 2d4. So is that 5, which is 8, and then 6 more, so 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rolled 2 1s for its hit points. You're just gonna like walk right through that thing and just completely shatter it, and it's gonna crumble right back to the ground.
Well, damn.
And then it's gonna go to Jinx. Obviously, you can move if you have. Actually, yeah. Do you have any more movement? Because I think I'm gonna end up teleporting.
Yeah, I can get like that, and I'm gonna try to get to it.
A ship makes for a very difficult place to teleport when I can teleport 30 feet. Because I think I have to teleport right back towards them. Yeah, there's really no other options than to just kind of like blink back and forth.
Does it have to be able to see where it's going?
It's a homebrewed creature where I really don't answer these questions ahead of time. So I would
I was
say
just saying,
normally
in case, like, I was just saying, not that I want to know, but like,
I would stick to it normally, yeah, because I think the spell that it's most likely to be using, or the like thing that it's most likely to be mirroring is sight. I think I can't think what it's called, Misty Step.
okay, yeah, because I was thinking like, where there's multiple levels of the ship, so if it could like essentially
Yeah.
do that.
I think that would get a little bit cheese for a low level creature that's already using legendary actions. Um yeah, so I think it's just gonna kind of like as you kind of like move towards it after like walking through those two skeletons, I think it's gonna kind of get to the same phase where it just like there's just a look of frustration. Um yeah, I think actually it's going to go back to chanting its initial ritual. It's not going to teleport away from you, and it's just going to start to chant. And I'm going to add for its chant meter because it is trying to complete this ritual. And I rolled like shit. So you just hear like as it like starts to like summon this skeleton, and you destroy the skeleton right away, and it just goes back to Nathrak, Uthral and like the flames start to like consume higher and higher up around this brass brazier that it's created in front of it, and it's like levitating in front of it, and it's using these words of power to try to create something, to cause something to start happening, and it's going to go to Jinx.
All right, so obviously there's like a lot of like scatter and stuff in here. Um, can I get a more clear line of sight to the like cauldron sort of like focus of it if I kind of get up on these boxes right here?
As far as it goes, it's kind of like directly between Malchin and the creature at this point, just kind of like, maybe like a foot or so above the ground. So, can you get a line of sight to it? Yeah, potentially. What are you thinking about?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I want to do. You tell me if I can do anything close to it. I want to try to get up on the boxes so I can get a clear sight at the little like cauldron, assuming that, I have some understanding of like spell focus or that that's important. I want to try to chuck my boomerang at that, like try to like, knock it away from him or whatever.
Yeah. Roll a attack with your boomerang, and let's see how well you can roll the hit here. Definitely much harder to hit than to hit the creature, though. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I definitely understand that. Okay, so just roll regular to hit and then damage too.
yeah, for what it's worth at this point, yeah.
All right, so as I throw my boomerang and definitely miss, obviously, I'm just gonna yell out, um, "Wait till they hear about Malcoon's afternoon at the old hook, line, and sinker," and I'm gonna bardic inspiration him.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I would say, God, it's hilarious to imagine that the boomerang can return to you inside of a vessel. Um,
Oh, you don't have to let it use that rule since we're like in confined area. It's
no,
up
I'm gonna
to
put it to a D100. Roll a D100, and if you get underneath a 33, it can return to you. Solid. Yep. So just the way you are used to throwing this boomerang, you're able to kind of like manipulate it where you're almost like throwing it around kind of like the side of the ship. So the way it's returning is almost like using the verticality of the ship instead of like the side to side area. And you can kind of like float it through this area and yeah, return it back around, catch it kind of high overhead. And I
Yeah.
think that is
As you see me catch it too, you see like the like gold fancy like filigree I just spent my money on, and I'm gonna look down at Davros and wink at him like that was the coolest complete miss you've ever seen.
yeah. I think this time it's going to kind of like yeah, I think it's going to continue its kind of chant using the words of power. Only this time you're going to see as one of its hands starts to kind of like make like a circular motion. So it's doing like two different things here. And as it starts to kind of like create this like circular motion, you might start to hear as it's like inserting words into the like chant of power. And each time that like you hear this like extra little bit, there's like just like a drip that kind of like comes through this little circle, and there's just kind of like a dark green viscous material that starts to float in midair in front of this creature before like as its left hand kind of like focuses and finishes the circle, it's going to push it forward, and it's going to throw acid at Malchin. Let's go for solid. So a 21 to hit you. I should have rolled the damage, my bad. It's going to deal 5 total acid damage to you as this tiny little like globule of this like dark greenish black acid just like sinks down onto your flesh. And as it starts to spread, there's like a sizzle and like a burning as it's cutting through your armor and down closer and closer to your skin. But otherwise, its chant continues. This object gets like consumed more and more by the flame, and this creature is trying to complete whatever ritual it is in the process of. Being more or less successful at present, it's going to go to Davros.
Yeah,
No.
sorry, Malcolm is blooded at this point as well.
So can Davros reach the creature, or is it difficult terrain in here with like the crates and boxes and stuff?
I'd say go for a acrobatics check. If you can hit 14 on an acrobatics, you can move normally through this space.
Okay.
Otherwise, you do have a lance on you that has reach.
Right. Let me see how acrobatic he is. 9 is probably not very acrobatic.
Yeah, I'd say as you like go to like plow through some of these areas, it's just like too much to trip over. Some of the like barrels and things are like freshly shattered from these bodies like erupting out of them.
Yeah, so he is maybe like kind of like bounces off like one of the kegs. He is going to drop the lantern to the ground. I think even with the lance, the reach of the lance, I don't think he can. It's so what, 10 feet, right?
The harpoon, you could throw it.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's what he would do. Yeah, he would take out his nice fancy new harpoon and just kind of with another bellow of rage that he can't reach it will launch his the harpoon at the creature.
Roll another D100 for me real quick. I'd say 66 and below. It's just a +1.
68.
All right, we'll roll it normally because this lance is not going to be just any old lance, so it's not necessarily a +1.
Okay, and I'm going to can I? Let me see. Oh no, melee weapon attacks rolled only for reckless attack. Okay, let me roll. Okay, so that's a critical hit. And then just I guess tell me what to roll for the damage.
I think a lance is 2d12.
Oh yeah, so a normal would be 1d12 plus 3.
Yeah, so yeah, 2d12 on the crit. So you're 2d12 plus 3 right now. Get over 20, and I think this is a solid end to it. So 17 total.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're gonna leave this creature at this point severely wounded, mortally wounded. I gotta roll to see what it does. That's effectively the end of your turn, though.
Yes, that's everything.
I want to try so hard to try to complete, but I think it's gonna try to book it away from Malchin. Yeah, it's going to. I think it's going to do a teleport, basically right behind where Davros is, and as it kind of like blinks into this position, you'll again see that like cauldron and the flame all kind of follow with it as it kind of pops up on that other side. And yeah, that'll go to you there, Malchin.
Yeah. Do you want me to? I mean, I'm gonna try to move like just north of Davros. Do you want me to roll acrobatics as well? But
I don't think it made enough room that it's really gonna matter for you. I think you can make it to that creature anyways.
all right, I'll do that.
Roll a d20 though. If you roll a 1, I'm gonna say yeah, you do find it too difficult to get there, kind of thing.
Roll a
Yeah.
12.
No reason to say that you can't get to it.
Yeah, and then I'm just gonna attack it. See, I'm gonna put my preferred foe. Yeah, favored foe. Yes, the 1d4. I'm just gonna make sure that I do get a kill on this one. Let's see. I rolled 10, 13 to hit.
Still hits inside of its AC. Yeah, definitely a low AC creature.
Okay, then I did, let's see, 3, 8, 12, 15 damage.
Yeah, no reason to say that it's not going to live through or that it can live through that. When this creature kind of like pops through and kind of like arrives on this other point, Malchin kind of like running through to like chase it down as it moves, kind of almost predicting the fact that this thing's just kind of like popping around this ship as it kind of arrives, leaving this atmospheric smell. Cutting it down, it's going to disintegrate, but this object that it's been moving around this cabin is going to flame up, and you just see is like the flame kind of consumes this like copper bowl, and then all of a sudden the flame goes out, and the bowl just kind of like ringing on the uh, bottom deck of this ship is just kind of like spinning as if it was spun like a top, and it's just like just like harmonizing as it like rings across the board of the ship. And I think that is a pretty solid time for us to call things here. We'll have probably, I think the next session kind of needs to almost pick up from this moment of finishing whatever happens with the ship at this point.
And that's how the session would have ended, except I silvery barbs Malchin. And if he misses, I beat the creature to death with my flute, because that's how legends are born. Oh, and then I snap out of it and see the little cauldron spinning on the ground.
That is definitely a vicious potential way to use silvery barbs to steal some of that joy.
I would never be that grimy, but it would have been really funny.
Is the boomerang bludgeoning damage though?
I don't know. How do you look for that?
I mean, it just should say on the item. Probably like the picture of it would probably look like a mace if it were bludgeoning.
Oh,
I feel
yeah,
like
it is.
the picture.
Yep, it's bludgeoning damage.
Yeah, I think a boomerang would be a pretty solid way to kill that creature anyway. So, as far as being a killjoy would go, it would be pretty effective, I would say. But
Oh,
yeah, that
I wasn't
creature.
I wasn't gonna attack it with the boomerang. Instead of dropping the flute and hitting it with the boomerang, I was gonna drop the boomerang and hit it with the flute. So I don't know if that would have got it.
That creature, like I had a solid idea of what I wanted to do for this ship, like all through the week and whatnot, like building up into yesterday. But I had a crazy dream about this, like super fucking vivid, about this creature, last night, and it definitely changed how I wanted to play things. So I like threw out the actual like stat block that I had created for basically this thing that I had dreamed, because I did not even think about the potential of what I could introduce here. And that was one of the things why when you're like asking, like, well, what's it using? And I'm like, it's one of those things where sometimes I'm using a stat block that tells me, like, you guys can kill it on like the third or fourth turn of initiative, but I don't need hit points for it because it can't die on the first or second. And that's one of those things where I feel like sometimes a creature can be a lot of fun to write on the fly instead of saying like this is what it does. And that was part of what I was like. Never once when I'm thinking about having this thing be able to like teleport away from you did I realize how much of a clusterfuck being on a long ship is with an ability like that, because it doesn't have anywhere to go. It like completely became pointless after a moment. Like, I should be able to summon skeletons. Like, the skeletons are hardly enough that they're much more than, like, maybe a 5% chance they can last through one attack.
Yeah, I was definitely worried about what was going to happen if that finished that ritual. Though.
Yeah, it was definitely a cool encounter. I liked it. It was fun. I mean, it's like it's cool to have like a little teleport ability like that to kind of add a little bit of like tacticality to combat and stop it from just being us all like clustered in one corner.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it almost has to be like a 40-foot move or something like that. But it's definitely one of those things. That's where having minions versus being able to summon minions is definitely a uh different thing as well. But like legendary actions and also starting out with minions probably was too much. But also starting with no minions. But I mean, originally one of the things that I was thinking was the classic like Dracula going across to a new continent where like Dracula like stows way on board and then eats everybody on the ship.
Yeah, I was wondering if the skeletons that were bursting out of those crates were like the former crew. Maybe we found them.
The old bones in a box trick. But I mean, honestly though, Malcoon got so hyped up when we stopped by the spot earlier. I mean, he had like the day of his life, 2 crits in a row and the big boss kill. I mean, give it up for this man.
Yeah, those were some really lucky rolls.
That was awesome, dude. I mean, obviously hyping people up really works.
Apparently.
I'd never seen you roll 120 before, let alone 2. That was insane, dude. Today was definitely legendary. That one's going in the book of lore for sure. Yeah, that was fun. We'll have to like see if we can try to figure out what the hell was going on here next session, because like I feel like now we have even more questions than answers.
Yeah, it was like grabbing something from another page when you rolled the first crit, so I never looked at it. So I'm looking at all the dice over again. I'm like, I feel like I heard the dice roll.
Yeah, that was super epic, man. Definitely fun. I'm gonna jet out of here though, guys. I'll catch you, I don't know, next